Good evening, everyone. Today is November 6th. It's 5:10. This is the Planning Advisory Board meeting. I will read a roll call. Please indicate that you're present. Melanie Hartwig Davis.
Present.
Lawrence Blevins.
Right.
Edward Evans.
Present.
Van Mason.
Present.
Elizabeth Rossboard.
Present.
Dawn Stolfus. And myself, Gus Kurtz, present. With 7 members present, we do have a quorum. Is there a motion to approve the agenda?
A motion to approve the agenda. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The motion carries. The agenda is approved. Motion to approve the minutes from October 23rd.
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? The motion is approved. The minutes are approved. Tonight's agenda starts with the water sewer master plan amendment with the public hearing component. Once we hear from the public, the PAB will deliberate on the amendment and form a recommendation. Later, the PAB will deliberate on the draft 9 region plan, comprehensive zoning map, and the period for public comment on Region 9 ran from September 18th to October 9th. We will not take any public comments tonight. So with that, the water sewer master plan presentation, Desiree and James, the floor is yours.
Hi, everyone. I'm Desiree Williams. I think I'm not going to speak to you right now, but I'm the program coordinator with the master plan. So I'll talk about introduce the water sewer master plan amendment. It's more specifics for you on the technical information. So this amendment is not like our usual amendments where we're moving category lines in order to bring a property into the service area. This amendment is really county led in order to address some enhanced nutrient removal upgrades to the Piney Orchard wastewater treatment plant. So it's actually sort of adding a sewer pump station and a fourth main in order to reroute some of the and decommission the Piney Orchard water reclamation facility. So I'll stop there and let you add anything.
So I'll just go real quick over how we got here and the reasons why we want to do this. So 2019, we purchased the plant from the private Piney Orchard utility group. We bought that in order to reduce nutrients going to the bay. They were at BRF nutrient limits, which I believe was 5 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, 0.5 of phosphorus. So we were going to upgrade it to ENR, which is enhanced nutrient removal, 3 milligrams per liter of nitrogen, 0.3 of phosphorus, and we can get those credits for our nutrient reduction to the bay. We brought on a consultant to start the design and upgrading the plant. They did a cost estimate and it came in very high, so we hired another design consultant to verify those costs. They said, yep, those are real. So at that point, we said, let's take a step back. Let's look at different alternatives. One of them being a pump station with a force main to take it down to our Churchton water reclamation facility. That price came in about $10 million lower than to upgrade the plant. And in order for us to get BRF funding through the state, it has to be on our master plan when they review the application. So this request is to update the master plan to show the new pump station and the force main going up Piney Orchard Parkway, down Wall Chapel to the Towsers Branch interceptor along South Street. And that will take all the flow to our Churchton reclamation facility, which does treat to an ERNR level, so we would still get those nutrient credits, not going to the bank. That's it in a nutshell. Any questions?
First question I have is capacity level for Tucson, and where is it now? Where will it be after this is done, and so on?
Yep. So Piney Orchard typically receives on average daily flow about 0.7. It's rated, or 0.5 MGD. It's rated for 0.7. So we would increase the flow going to Tucson by 0.5, average 0.7. or what it's designed for if Piney Orchard gets fully developed. So that would be our average daily increase. We would design the pump station for 2.8 to 3 MGD because you put a four-time multiplier on it for rain events. So it'd be a 0.5 to 0.7 increase at Patuxent in the average daily.
And what is the capacity level?
Oh, yeah, so the capacity, right now, average daily flow is about 5 to 6 MGD. It's rated for 8, so we have over 2.5 million gap in between what it currently sees and what it's rated. So it would eat into a small portion of that.
And in layman's terms, how many houses is that?
Yeah, so 500,000 gallons per day divided by 250. Yeah, so it's the whole Piney Orchard subdivision. So what is that, 40,000 homes?
An additional
Going to Patuxent.
Did you say you had four, or you were supposed to have 4 times the capacity?
So when you rate a pump station, when you design for your capacity, you have to design for 4 times the amount of average daily flow. So the current treatment plant at Piney Orchard is rated for 0.7 times 4 is 2.8. So we're gonna design it for at minimum of 2.8, maybe 3. And that takes care of any rainwater intrusions. That's what by code you have to design a pump station for the minimum 4 times what your average daily flow is going to be.
I guess, Chair.
Mhm.
Were there any challenges with this path and the properties and easements or environmental issues, or is it all through a developed area, it looks like?
Yeah, so we looked at, I think, 9 different alignments. This one has many obstacles. The Wall Chapel, going up Piney Orchard is not gonna be difficult. Once you get on the Wall Chapel, there's a suicide lane for about 3/4 of it, which we shouldn't have an issue there if we do all night work. What's gonna get tough is when it comes down to 2 lanes. And from the last quarter of Wall Chapel before it gets to Route 3, so it's probably gonna be all night work. They may have to add some additional lanes, so, because we never want to you want 2-way traffic at all time on Wall Chapel. So we're gonna be looking at night work and then, adding temporary lanes, to get to work. But with line work, you can get that in pretty quick, and with that so we're probably talking a 1/4 of a mile, half mile. You should be able to do that within a couple weeks, if everything goes all right.
And what are the plans for the decommissioned facility?
Yeah, so right now, we don't know, it's about 3 acres that would become available. So we could either clear it and have it, open space, or you could use it as a testing facility. So there's multiple options out there, we don't know. But we would have to decommission a plant, so it takes it off of MD's register. But as far as use of that property, we don't know. It is in the floodplain, so it's not like, you're not gonna do anything major there, but it could be used for something. But unknown at this time.
Thank you.
And you said the county purchased that plant and the property,
Yes,
the county will own that 3 acres.
and we purchased like a 0.3 acres on the north side with where the pump station will go. So we can completely build the pump station without having to do anything at the plant. Set up our pipes. Once it's tested and ready, turn the valve. Now that plant's completely offline. We're fully on to the pump station. So we will own all that. It'll be county property, where the plant is now and where the pump station will be, just on the north side of the plant.
Is that considered hazardous?
Well, it's sewer. So if you have a sanitary sewer overflow, that is, we have to treat that. We have to go out and put line down and remediate that. But-
The old plant, once you shut
I
that
got you.
down,
Yeah,
is
yeah.
that considered?
So there are chemical rooms that you would have to do some testing. When it was built in the late 80s, we're probably not looking at any lead or asbestos. But then you would want to test the soils in the ground and make sure the nutrients, nitrogen and phosphorus, and there's methanol there. So you would have to test around that methanol plant or the tank. But, so I couldn't tell you right now if it is hazardous, but we would have to do all that testing to decommission it.
Is that testing automatically done? Or is that testing optional for decommissioning it?
I don't know. I would hope that it's, mandatory. But I mean, I can find out.
Well,
I haven't decommissioned the plant yet.
we're just thinking about if converting it, if you wanted to use it as a park, or if you wanted to use it as active open space. Then
Yeah, you would want the soils to be.
all that would need to be determined.
So I worked at the Brooklyn plant before. Since you're adding all this new stuff, how much of a percent do you think that rate is overflowing sometimes when it rains?
You,
Because if you have, 40,000 new houses going down
Right.
to the Tucson now, and I know that, like you said, sometimes they get overfilled because of rain. Would that increase the chances by how much, or do you think it'd be fine?
yeah, so we haven't had an overflow at Tucson. And we have 2.5 MGD additional capacity that we could handle there. And this doesn't come near that. This would only be a 0.5 MGD. So I would expect no sewer overflows at Tucson. Now, they have had sewer overflows going into the plant here at Piney, but that was the gravity line coming in, it comes in, turns a 90 and it's very flat. So if grit builds up there and you don't flush it, then the sewer overflowed on the first manhole out on the road. We will be addressing that because now it's gonna be coming 245s into a pump station. So we'll clear out that. Well, we clean that line every month now, so we reduce the risk of that, but with a pump station and 245s, it will reduce that risk even.
Board members, any other questions?
Sorry,
That's the one that
Question.
decommissioned.
And then I'm gonna find out about the testing of soils, during decommissioning, and I'll respond back to you.
And the cost associated with this?
So, when we talk about costs for construction, design, inspection, county costs, all in, we're probably around the $30 million for the pump station enforcement. We were a little over 40 on the, upgrading the plan to an ENR. And we have been verbally told by MD that we will get 44% BRF funding, so you knock off about $8.5 million from that 30.
And this is a new budget item.
We have most of it in the budget. I think I'm asking for a little bit more this year, but I believe we have most of it already.
CIP SP 07600, he's already,
It's already
it's
there.
already there.
Because we had started asking for it when we thought we were gonna upgrade the plan.
Okay.
And then, so we had most of the money there. Now we've changed directions. It's gonna take us longer to use it, what we were previously gonna do.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, at this point in time, we will open for public hearing. Every speaker will be afforded 2 minutes per person. If you're called, when you're called to speak, please state your name and address. If you're on Zoom, we will provide you permission to unmute. And at that time, then state your name and address. Do we have anybody?
Nobody signed up ahead of time. I'm gonna check right now. I have folks online, no, like I said, nobody signed up ahead of time. Would you like to open it up
Is
to,
there anybody here that wishes to speak on this? Okay.
if you're on Zoom and you'd like to speak, you can use the raise hand feature under reactions. To get to that reactions. It should be in the bottom of your. Give it another few seconds here. Not seeing any movement online provided in testimony.
Okay, is there any other comments or deliberations from any board members on this topic? If not, Melanie's going to make a motion.
Move to approve the water sewer master plan amendment. A second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? The amendment is approved. Thank you.
Thank you guys very much.
Right on time. Eric, you're up next. So with that, we're right on time. It's 5:30. The Planning Advisory Board will discuss Region 9 Plan Comprehensive Zoning Map. And the summary of the public testimony will be presented by Eric Ketterling and Jessica, please. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and the Advisory Board. Unfortunately, we will not be as quick as that on the agenda, but I will try to do this and sleep tonight. Well, while Jesse is pulling up the presentation, I just want to say thank you all for being here tonight and thank you for letting us present to you. For those who do not know, my name is Eric Ketterling. I'm the senior planner for the Region 9 planning process. I'm accompanied by Jessica Levy, Mike Stringer, as well as Christina Pompa, the Deputy Planning and Zoning Officer, overseeing the Planning Division, Cindy Carrier, who is Planning Administrator for the Long Range Planning Section. And we also have Joan Jenkins from the Zoning Administration. So just to give a quick overview of what to expect for tonight. I want to give a very brief update to the timeline, and then we're going to jump into the Region 9 plan deliberation, the plan document itself, and then the comprehensive zoning. That'll be the bulk of the meeting tonight, is the comp zoning aspect. After that, there were a few new requests submitted during the planning advisory board review period. I'll touch more on this a little bit, but I will introduce those at the end of tonight's presentation. But there will be a special public hearing and a deliberation for those applications themselves. Tonight will not focus on those new requests. And that so as you've seen this slide very similarly before, just kind of a brief overview of the planning advisory board process, as well as an overall adoption process. We are in that middle square right now, November 6th deliberation. Tonight we'll also kick off the public review of those new applications I just mentioned, the new zoning requests that I just mentioned. Through this point, the staff and SAC recommendations have been produced to you all, the planning advisory board, as well as the members of the public. So after tonight, the planning advisory board's recommendations will be grouped with those other previous recommendations, eventually shipped off to the county council, who has the ultimate authority and final decision making. We anticipate that being introduced to county council in January of next year. So as I mentioned, the public hearing on November 20th, that will be part for the Region 9 new application request that came in, where the public will have an opportunity to provide oral testimony. And then on December 4th, that's where the deliberation will occur for just those new requests. I wanted to emphasize staff's outreach throughout this entire planning process as a kind of a gear up for the planning discussion. I'll hit on a few key outreach aspects that we've done throughout the entire planning process. This is not the entire list, but again, some very key aspects that we've done as staff to really make sure we've done our best to inform all members of the public of the process going on. Those include mailings to property owners, application owner requests. We had initial online questionnaires from visioning to draft strategies. We broke those up based on topic, transportation, housing, environment, etc. We had 2 online community forums. And then the initial draft zoning map. And then as well as any SAC meeting we've had, there were 10 of them for Region 9. I'd like to give a shout out to Matt Minahan, who's here, he's a Region 9 member. So those were opportunities for the public to provide comment as well. We also did multiple newsletters via email. We worked with the Office of Constituent Services to help provide our advertisements through their newsletters as well. We did a lot of tabling events, community events. We were really out in the public as much as we could be. And then we actually worked with the South River High School Signature Program to help engage some of the youth as well. We also took out the notice ads in the Capital Gazette and specifically for the PV public hearings, which is why we had a lot of good testimony to this process. And all that information that we gathered, all those comments, all those pieces of information really helped us get information to put into the plan and present what was in front of you. So that brings me to what we heard during the Planning Advisory Board review of this plan. What you can see here is a breakdown of what was submitted by the public. As you can see, most of the comments were related to zoning, right? Comments of zoning, the recommendations. There were a few questions or comments related to the need for walkability, safety, and access to community meetings, as well as just overall questions about updates or existing plan projects such as roadway improvements. So at this time, I'll ask the PAB if there's any comments or deliberations on the plan document itself, not the zoning, but the plan anything that was in the plan document. At the end of tonight's meeting, we can ask for a formal PAB recommendation to be voted on. But we want to do that after the zoning in case some land use recommendations were to be included as well. Seeing none, we'll keep on. We'll go right into the bulk of tonight, which is the comprehensive zoning. I'm going to go in alphabetical order of my community to match the sheet in front of you, just so it's a little easier. Hopefully, we're not bouncing around sheets like we've done with Region 4, for example. We're trying to make it a little bit easier for you because we appreciate the time you've devoted and we want to make sure we respect tonight as well. I'll highlight the areas where the SAC and staff had either differing ideas or recommendations. Well, a lot of these areas that we'll bring up tonight is areas that SAC did not hear because of a recommendation that was prompted after the SAC's last meeting. And those are noted in each slide. So if you have questions about that, I'll be happy to answer. Total slides about areas where the SAC and staff differ are about 30. So there are 30 different locations that we want to present to you tonight. But if there are any other areas that we don't talk about, a specific community that you want to bring up, we absolutely have that opportunity to do so. So we'll start off with Churchton. So in the Churchton community, there were 3 zoning change applications, one of which for the SAC and OPZ had differing ideas or different recommendations. There were 9 OPZ and SAC recommended zoning changes, 2 of which staff and SAC had different recommendations. And I'd also like to point out, any time there was a public comment through the PAB review period, we're bringing that up as well. So for example, there was one application with a public testimony during the PAB process. We'll bring up from the Churchton area as well. And we'll do that with each case. So if there was an application where a public testimony was occurring on, bring that up tonight for your full transparency. So the first application ends in CHT 0001. This is 5610 Shady Side Road. It's currently zoned R1 and C three.
There's a tiny amount of C that you can see spilling over from the neighboring property to the west. So that's where the existing C three is. It's right where this cursor is moving.
So just a very, very little, let's just point it out. The owner requested C three for the entire property, and the entire property for those who can see is in the circle section. The green circle, that big kind of weird looking L shape. The property owner requested C three for the entire parcel. Staff recommended a split zone of C three in the front portion that abuts the Shady Side Road up to that white line that I put on that map. And then R1 in the back. The SAC did not have a recommendation on this site. The SAC could not reach a recommendation, but they did discuss concerns about drainage and water runoff. Other SAC members believe that this could be an ideal site for a commercial location, given the development to the west. But others noted traffic concerns, given some fatalities in the area, and other vacant commercially zoned sites in the area. The group discussed this for a good amount of time, but again, ultimately could not reach a consensus.
Eric, can you clarify, please, the circle? I see the one on the left, it looks like there's 4 parcels there.
It's just the big L, like if imagine.
Just the L, okay, got it, okay.
Yes.
And the parcels that are planned south of Shady Side Road, is that what zone is that?
Yeah, that's R1 as well.
That's our.
Yeah, this opaque whitish color is R1. This bright vibrant red is C3. And this magenta pink kind of color is C4.
And what is currently on the property?
Majority R1 with a slight amount of C3 that is spilling over kind of from the property to the west.
Sorry, what is the current use of the property?
I believe it's.
So right now, it's split zoned where the front is
A very
the small part,
Real
okay,
small
the
part.
real small part, and then, but you're thinking that the bigger part of the front should be C3 and the back should be R1.
That's correct.
yes.
And there is nothing, there are no structures currently existing.
I don't know this at all.
The existing C3, the small portion, you think that was an overlay area error?
I would say it's probably one of the areas of an online GIS system where things wander a little bit.
Likely is if the applicant never came in, this would have been cleaned up. We were all R1, but because they came in for a C3 request, we evaluated it through that lens.
And what is across the street all on?
This opaque color is R1, so directly across is all R1, but the bright red shade is C3, and there's some C4, which is magenta color.
And that's just to kind of orient everybody, that C4, I believe, is Royal Farms, and the site's located right next to
Christopher, what? Christopher.
So the grocery
Christopher.
store.
Okay, I don't know.
I think it's more tax up there. It's more channel four.
10.6.
It's 10.6.
No,
Yeah. So the property is
If you were to change the piece of C3, how big is that?
approximately 2.6 acres from this white line to the road frontage. And then in terms of what's behind the property, there is some residential development and there is some, yeah, there is some just kind of large swaths of a little bit of undeveloped.
Where's the, piece to the left, my left, it would be the red, yeah.
This one right here?
Yeah.
That's the Christopher.
That's the grocery store? Are you gonna fix the gaps up at the top of the road?
Exactly, you got it.
Yep, you do.
Any plans for that C3 if they allow that C3?
The applicant noted that they would like to have it be some kind of, a family gathering place where potentially you could bring your children and buy a hot dog, I believe was essentially the application. That being said, that's an idea. There's no site development plans.
What were the two comments received? Where is that?
I believe,
They were grouped into, other as well.
I see on page 8 that there were two comments, exclusively on Churchton. One referred to a consistency change, and the other was from a property owner asking about the comprehensive zoning process.
Yeah, if you look on, page A21 of the summary document we sent, it's the first two, comments. Yeah, so, and the comments are both actually, word for word identical. And they say, I'm writing, this concerned resident of Cleve Heights, neighborhood located within Region 9, and aligned with the position of Arundel, of the Arundel Rivers Federation regarding preservation of Cleve Heights Forest.
so the comments that we received on this one, it was in, like they submitted a PDF. The bulk of their comments referred to Cleve Heights, but they also aligned with Arundel Rivers on a couple of other applications, including this one. So they were, kind of echoing some of the Arundel Rivers comments, which are, mainly about environmental preservation.
Okay.
This Michael Strange said, have a little context on where the stakeholder advisory committee discussions were, and what comments on this previously. We did receive some comments in previous rounds, not during the PAB comment period, but through previous public review of the preliminary draft. This is on the edge of the commercial area in Churchton. So there's always a lot of discussion in the region plan and in previous plans this area about whether or not to allow expansion of that commercial area. Obviously, this is directly adjacent to some commercial shopping centers, grocery store, and some adjacent. So it's got that proximity, but there's that concern about, do you allow for any expansion of commercial in this area? This part of Churchton is designated in Plan 2040 as the Deale center. So it's one of those areas that we, by our general book and policies, are encouraging, redevelopment. And some of the comments we received previously from the public were from adjacent property owners who were opposed to it, and their comments were that concern about expansion and concern that and comment that the services they're discussing, these community gathering spaces, other places that provide that, such as the new Deale Community Park. And the stakeholder advisory committee has shown it didn't have recognition because they were split. Folks who said, well, hey, this is a village center. This is an area that we want to see promotion of development, but also on the other hand, should we limit and not expand that? So that's kind of where they got, where they couldn't reach a consensus.
So I'll just say, I appreciate OPZ's recommendation as far as splitting it and recognizing that all of it shouldn't be C3. I do have notable concerns about it, about the expansion and about the R1 and all the residences right across the street. I think if there's some point where we'd rather hold the line, let those continue to be residential in area, and then, again, more density in, to the left of that with the existing commercial areas that are already defined. So I would oppose this.
Would it not be a boundary line adjustment for that small piece of C3? Or to pull that
That
back?
would still happen, but what they're proposing is that do you see the white line?
No, I know that, but I'm saying that without the application, that would have been a boundary line adjustment to come back to bring that back.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
And that, am I right, though? That could still happen. I mean, there can still be the alignment, but not a full change for that portion of the split zoning. Okay.
Property owner would accept something that would be free, that. And
Can you elaborate on your thoughts?
I would say C1 or small business, since it is your town center development. Would you consider something better or
think that's up to interpretation. I think if they're applying for C three,
Go there.
and this property is actually not located within this village, it's just on the border of the village.
Okay, okay, then. Yeah. I think it's still safe.
Those things.
Good plan. I motion that we do not recommend for CZ R9 CHT -0001 to be changed, as a split use.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays?
Nay.
One nay. The motion carries. Make a motion. Yeah, do it that way.
I make a motion that CZRN CH2 0001 be recommended for all R1 with the portion of C3 being a boundary line adjustment,
Change back to.
change back to the boundary line adjustment. And do I have to do part of the plan too?
No, I think the plan that you said. I'm just saying, just take this.
And reflected in Plan 2040 accordingly.
Motion's been made, a second.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Nays?
Yay.
One nay, motion carries.
Just to clarify that basically clarifies it more straightforward in terms of what you want versus the previous motion, that's what you didn't want. It's the same thing in both motions.
We want to
Right.
eliminate,
Clear.
we don't want to leave that little piece of
Right.
C3 existing on that property.
We'll work on condensing that. Sorry. Getting back
Okay.
into the group.
So we're still in Churchton then.
Yeah, okay, so yeah, thanks. We're still in Churchton. These two are very similar. We'll start with CHT 113, which is to the right, the bigger circle to the right. This was initially a staff recommendation.
Sorry, you're jumping to 113?
113.
Okay, sorry, go ahead.
This was initially a staff recommendation. It's the 3 parcels fully within the circle, right in the middle. Initially, staff recommended open space for all 3 parcels. This is a private, owner's home, and, this is parcels connected, to a private owner's home. And it's currently split zones, R5 and OS. Staff initially saw this, and did, research on the property, and came up with the recommendation, recommending open space for this based on all the environmental protections that are currently there. That's what we presented to the SAC. The SAC agreed with open space. After the SAC met, we concluded a meeting with the SAC. Property owner did not, saw the recommendation, we notified them, saw the recommendation of OS. And they said, no, I don't know, I do not want OS. I want R5. So staff took a look at this property again, and saw that there were all these environmental protections on there, that even no matter what it was zoned, R5 or OS, there's nothing that could, very little to no development could occur on this property. Additional development could occur on this property. So staff has recommended a new recommendation of R5 for the entire our property.
Mr. Chairman, this is .1.
Yes, so the tax account number for this property includes all 3 of these lots, from right here where the cursor is currently, this middle one, and this bottom one. In Plan 2040, 2 of the lots, the middle one and the bottom one, have a planned land use of conservation. The top one has a planned land use of low density residential. So, but they're all under the same tax account. So when staff looked at it and we saw the environmental features and that they're all under one tax account, like Eric said, we originally were recommending OS for all of them. But when we heard back from the property owner, they said, nope, please follow Plan 2040. And that top one is only 0.1 acres. And so it would just be a change to the 0.0 that is currently OS to recommend that be R5. So it's just where this cursor is that we are recommending be R5.
And when you refer to environmental features, can you elaborate what environmental features?
In the critical area, the resource conservation area critical area. I believe. Probably the email a little bit. Oh yeah, we are very close to the water. here. This is water, yes. And this is all kind of like a marshy area that's owned by the community.
You say due to development, there can't be no development anyway, correct? Exactly. Am I right?
That's
Yeah.
correct. Yeah.
Even with modification?
From what I'm hearing, it's saying no.
Yeah, that's my understanding is, it's too restricted.
Then why is it so important to the property?
That's what I'm saying, yeah. It's like, what we're,
They're gonna bring
OS,
one back.
R5, what's,
It doesn't matter.
what are we doing?
Conversation we asked.
Eric, can I,
Yeah, absolutely. John?
Joan Jenkins with Planning and Zoning, I happen to have a variance case coming up on this property. They have, some improvements to both sides of the house that they want to do, and when they do them, if they are allowed to do those improvements, their building permit actually shows the house then being over the property line on the property north, the top, one of those. The house is actually on a different tax count number. But they will be required, if it all goes through, to merge all of those lots into one piece of property, and they'll have one piece of property that has a residence. That matters.
Okay. What's the variance for? Like, what is?
It's setbacks and the fact that they've got, right now, the property has those 3 properties with a lot of open space on it. And so we have to use the setbacks for the majority of the property, which is open space versus R5. And the setbacks for open space is 50 feet from a lot line, so they are too close to the lot line. As an open space lot.
Okay.
That's the R5 for this. Explain.
Right. Right.
Oh,
But it's for their-
What are we doing? Okay.
by the way, it was just the top piece because of where the property sits on the house and the variance for the lot line. Right, it's just where the arrow is, right? Basically, yeah, because you can see the shadow, yeah, we're going in line. So I assume that.
Yeah, that's a shadow.
You're just trying to keep him from having to be fined. Or he's just trying to keep from being fined just because he only wants the one lot, correct?
It was only the one lot, that's correct. In their request to us.
Okay, like, routine thing.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a fine. Right, so it's not a fine.
It just
Well,
wouldn't-
it's in violation. because of-
It wouldn't be a fine, but he wouldn't be allowed to expand his house.
Right, that's what,
Yeah, and to expand
they're
their house.
looking to expand the house. Oh, okay.
That's,
I make a motion that CZRN CH20113 be recommended for R5. And that the planned land use match accordingly.
I second.
okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
The nays?
Nay.
A motion carries.
Okay, moving on, to 114, the circle to the left. This was initially a consistency change to our analysis. We recommended this entire, property tax account ID to become open space. But again, after SAC met, the property owner came back and said, no, I want R5 for the property. I want to maintain R5 for the whole property, not just the property.
So to provide a little bit more information, this property includes these 2 lots where the cursor is kind of forming the X shape. The owner also owns an adjacent lot. And so it has a planned land use of conservation or open space, or parks and open space, forgive me. So for consistency, we originally recommended OS. When they got their letter in the mail, similar to this other case, they said, well, hold up, and requested to have R5 zone.
Again, it's 0.1.
On this one, it's the 2 lots total 0.3 acres, and the change would be to 0.2 acres, the OS portion going to R5.
Do the same thing.
There's no current, structure on that lot.
That's correct. The structure is on the neighboring lot, that's under a different tax account. It's this one where the green circle kind of rolls through it.
That property is right there. That house is right there on that line, isn't it?
Yeah, but once again, the property is very close to the line.
It sits on it.
Yeah,
It's not close, like it's part of it.
it is actually part of it, yeah.
Right, it's part of it.
Okay, so I'm gonna make a motion for CB R9 CHTP 0114. Recommended for R5 zoning and the plan land use.
A second.
A motion's been made, all in favor? Nays?
Nay.
Nay. One nay, motion carries.
And that wraps up everything. There was a difference of opinion for public testimony on the church.
Okay, so what we're gonna do is, we're gonna make a motion and recommend approval for the Churchton community, unless there's any other discussions about church.
Any other discussion?
Any other discussions on Churchton?
Nope.
Okay,
I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes for the Churchton community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting.
Second.
second,
We just said the word zoning.
okay,
No policy written, plan land.
I think I separated them into three, so she's gonna just have to talk about that.
Yeah. because of those reasons. Right.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
I motion to recommend approval of the planned land use changes for the Churchton community as recommended by OPZ, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting.
Second.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Uh,
Nays? Motion carries.
I motion to recommend approval of the comprehensive zoning changes for the Churchton community as recommended by OPZ, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second, all in favor? Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, next community.
Moving on to Deale, there were 4 applications submitted during the planning process. OPZ and SAC agree on all the applications, recommendations. There were 12 areas where OPZ and staff recommended changes, one of which the SAC had a different view. And then there were public testimony. The majority of the comments focused really on the consistency changes for individual projects specifically. So there were 2. There's really only one area we have to discuss tonight. And this is one where the SAC it was added after the SAC's last meeting. This is an area. It's the big parcel right there, circled the entirety of it. It's currently zoned R5. Staff's recommendation is to make it go OS. The change to OS is consistent with the open space use and the development limitations specified in the plat. The state actually classified it as marshland, and the remaining, so how this came up was we were reviewing areas just to the south, and we came across this area, saw the plat, saw that there were restrictions to it, this site, and part of the owner name in the SDAT actually has the words open space in it, but the plat does provide limitations on what we've done. Which is why the staff recommended open space for this.
Brian, can you expand upon that, Eric? Because that's a big change to go from R5 to OS.
Yeah, so in doing some of our analysis, we'll use the plats that are from when the community is made. And on them, they'll have restrictions, oftentimes less than
Exactly.
the open space and recreation area are needed to the residents for uses exclusively related to recreation. And so in that case, that would be more aligned with an open space zoning district. because something like that, you know, you can't develop it with housing. And so because of that, this plat has something akin to that on it, that it's mainly for open space or recreation purposes. And so that's why we're recommending that open space zone.
Is there anything on it right now?
Yeah.
No,
So
She wants to know if you can ask the question.
There's generally not supposed to be public.
Yes, I want, on your voice, that question.
Elizabeth, you asked if there's anything currently on the property?
Yeah.
No, it's currently undeveloped.
Do they have comments on this one?
When you want to go,
I look, I support, I'm okay, I support it.
I know, but I'm.
Yeah.
I don't hear your conversation, so are we discussing this as together or?
Yeah, there's nothing,
there's not,
oh,
She was asking if
we're
it was
trying
on
to
Google
find
Earth.
it, find it on the map, but it doesn't have an address.
yeah,
Um,
that's right, about it. What
Yeah.
you got on?
I think,
Jeez. We found a proximity to it, so
Mhm.
there's nothing in the woods,
Mm.
so. Any discussions on it?
I would just say I support that recommendation.
So I support and, say that we keep it as what it is recommended, and it is CD R9 DEL 00114, I'm sorry.
So you're recommending, you're motioning to recommend OS.
Yes, I'm sorry.
Okay, motion's been made to
Second.
go with OPZ's recommendation of open space. A second? Second, Orange. Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
I think that's it for the Deal community. Are there any other Deal comprehensive zoning changes you'd like to discuss?
I don't have any here. Anybody have anything else on Deal? Okay, so.
I can do this.
All three of them.
Yeah, here, I
Three to
understand.
go.
Well, yeah.
There you go. No one
Can I
make a motion.
combine them?
For Deal.
All right. I motion to recommend the approval of the development policy area and the development policy area overlay changes, as well as the planned use changes, as well as the comprehensive zoning changes for the community of Deal, as recommended by OPZ, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting.
Okay, second, motion's been made and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, Eric, next community?
Moving on to Edgewater, there is a total of 6 areas we have to discuss tonight, or we want to present to you tonight. 3 of which from the SAC and staff have differing opinions, and 3 applications with public testimony. The first is going to be Edgewater 002. It's the long skinny circle. Please ignore the smaller one. That's gonna be on the next slide. I just forgot to remove it from this one. This is the funeral home right off Solomon Island Road. The reason the SAC and one of the reasons that potentially why the SAC and staff had differing view of the site is because at the time of the SAC conversation, the applicant had not gotten back to staff about where they wanted a split of the property. Since then, where you can see the white line, the applicant is requesting to have a split of commercial to the front of Solomon's on the road to that white line and maintain the residential in the back. But again, the SAC, because they were not given that information by the applicant at the time, they decided not to provide a recommendation. But again, the staff recommendation for this is to have C3 towards the front, closest to Solomon's on the road, and then R1 in the back.
The white lines where C3 ends.
Correct.
And this is Solomon's Island Road right
Yeah.
here.
Any questions on this one?
Question.
Elizabeth?
How much space? I'm looking at the meeting comments and Mr. Quirk, is that correct? Made a comment about environmental impacts. How much of that has already been developed? I can see basically,
the front portion is already developed with the funeral home,
right?
and the line recommended by staff would provide an additional half acre of C3. I don't have a number offhand for the back, but based upon the fact that it looks to be about half the property, I would say it's roughly about 2.3 acres back here that would remain undisturbed. General, I can use.
No, that's perfect. That's what I was asking for. Thank you, Justin.
Are you gonna do any changes in there?
There are a number of consistency changes.
So this area is getting cleaned up through consistency changes on the neighboring properties. And those are better reflected via map it through the mapping tool that's online now, if you want to see those.
Any other questions?
It wasn't very
Comments?
clear what they were gonna do with that, within the attorney's language, or why they wanted it. Is it better use?
I think I recall Mr. Court said they wanted to expand the funeral home.
I think that they are interested. It's one of the few funeral homes in this area, so it services a good number of folks. And so I think they just want to better utilize their space a little bit.
And speaking with the representative multiple times, I got the impression they just, what Jesse just said, expand the current services. It doesn't seem like they have any interest in leaving. They just want to continue to better serve.
Any questions? You wanna make a motion?
I move that we, that CZ R9 EDW -002 be recommended for a split zoning of R1 and C3. And that the planned land use planned land use match accordingly.
Second, okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Heading immediately south, or southwest maybe technically, the two green circles. The first one is 003. It's the circle where Jesse's pointer is on. It's the one, the most northern one of the two. Then 004, larger one. Both applications came in for C4. They're currently zoned C3. Staff and SAC both recommend maintaining the C3. The reason we're bringing this up to PAB is because we have seen several comments on these two properties. We wanted to share with you about these areas.
Basically, staff and the SEC both recommended C3, but we did hear public testimony. There was some verbal testimony to you guys at high school about this area. That testimony did reflect what staff has heard previously and the recommendation of staff to retain the existing.
I think the SAC and OPC are in agreement on this.
That's correct.
Any other discussion? Okay,
Do you want to read it? Do you want to read it? So,
I motion CVR9 EDW 003 be recommended for zoning of C3 and that the planned land use match accordingly.
and put 004 in there also on the motion.
In addition to 004 as well.
Second,
Okay, motion's been made and second, all in favor?
aye.
Any nays? Motion carries to keep it C3.
Moving right along, this is Edgewater 0108 and 0109. Even though they're two different zoning categories, they are similar in the fact that they are currently split zone. And there was an initial consistent change for both of these that you've heard from the owner. For example, from 0108, there's a tiny little portion within B to the far northeast. And the rest of the property is zoned R5. The owner would prefer to have all NB because it provides access to the existing NB property behind it. This would allow, it's consistent with the existing use of the entrance to the property, to the marina. And it's compatible with the surrounding area, and it helps apply just the one zoning to the whole parcel.
What is that, a basketball court?
Yes, this property to the south of the Green Circle property is owned by a community association. It's part of a different comprehensive zoning recommendation that we can discuss if you'd like. But it's not owned by the same person.
Is it just an access point?
How do they access it now? Is that still the access point? They're just changing the center?
That's my,
Because it's a split. Okay.
and, from my understanding, there's no intent to do anything development wise through here. I don't even know if it's big enough to. do
I was gonna
anything.
say, how wide
Yeah,
do you think it
it's-
is? 30, it's like about 30.
The entire property is approximately 0.0 acres.
Yeah.
So it really, from a standpoint of view, we recommended the MB because it's consistent with the existing use, of the parcel entrance to the larger.
Okay, but Eric, didn't you just say that there is another application for the basketball court?
Yes, the basketball court is owned by a different group. It's owned by I don't have it written down here, but it is owned by a HOA, essentially a community association. That property also has an easement for the marina. And so they simply requested a split of OS and MB. They requested MB on that area that's easement for the marina and OS on the remainder of the property.
Okay, so we're not changing,
You're not gonna
we're
change it.
staying consistent with neighbors. That was my question.
Yeah.
Okay.
Down the bottom.
I motion CZR9EDW -0108 on the visual drive. Adopt the staff's recommendation for MB and to be recommended for sorry, and land the planned land use master plan.
And you want to include 0109 also?
0109.
Yeah.
Just
All right, motion's been made for EDW 0108 and a second. All in favor? Any nays? Motion carries.
So for 0109, very similar situation, except it's, in my words, about half currently zoned R5 and half, C3.
Yeah.
C3, it's a parking lot. This is gonna be a consistency change to make it all R5 with the underlying land use. We let the property owner know. He said, no, it's a parking lot for an existing business. It's been here for a while. So he just wants to maintain the parking lot.
Is that the business or is that a resident? Right,
It's the business to the, right there, where the cursor is. Down.
that's the business.
Yes. Fine. No, the business is conforming, it's currently zoned commercial.
They have several lots over here, if I'm remembering.
Right, so in that circle though, right, in your circle.
Yeah.
To the left, I guess you're right. Is that a home or is that a business?
Yes, that's all.
It's owned by someone else.
What are we trying to do?
Questions?
So yeah, the property owner, he's using it as a parking lot.
Right, right there.
He wants to make sure it stays a parking lot, and he needs it to be commercial.
Yes,
Just the portion that's currently like the half split. We'd be fixing that split, quote unquote, to make it all commercial.
Can I ask a quick question? I think I have a typo on the zoning on the screen.
Yeah,
Recommended zoning is,
It's C3, not OS.
yeah, and the recommended zoning is
C3.
Okay, do you have the ability to change that on the fly, Jesse? Just for clarity?
Thank you, Michael, because I couldn't figure that out.
If they're,
Questions, discussions?
how long is the parking lot actually on that sliver?
Yes.
And so and that's been there already, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, so the adopted zoning should be split R5 and C3.
C3.
Sorry.
Right,
And then your staff recommending is to make it all C3.
C3.
Correct. Sorry
So-
about that.
Oh,
And what is the business? You know what the business is? I think it comes to my mouth.
I got it up here, but it's
Is that
not.
that's not Adam's Grill, is it?
Go ahead and make the motion.
This is the. This is the parking. But it's the parking lot here.
You ready for a motion?
Yeah, you can, it's just, yeah, it makes sense. All right,
I motion that CZ R9 W-0109 be recommended for the C3 zoning change staff recommended, and that the planned land use match according.
Second, your motion's been made to change that to all C3, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Any nays?
okay.
One nay, motion carries.
Moving on to the last one in Edgewater, we wanted to bring up to you. This is, Edgewater 0400, 25 Leland Road. This is an application that came in where the property owner, is currently zoned R1. The owner requested MA2, and the staff has recommended MA1B, given the surrounding community. Just for a future reference, the property immediately to the south is a currently legally non-conforming marina, and they have come in for a application to make their property MA2. That's before you and will be discussed later on, but tonight this focus will be the one that's circled.
so that's Warehouse Creek.
Yes.
Marina?
Can you explain, it says that MA1B, which is what you're recommending, does not permit some of the existing uses related to boat storage.
I believe the property owner mentioned, the type of storage that it is not wet storage, I think.
Yeah, but there was something that, so it's our understanding that the site is currently operating, or it's not legally conformed currently. And the property owner from my understanding, has recently purchased the property, and is going through the steps to try to make it legally conforming.
Got it.
And the applicant is claiming that MA1B does not give him the full conformance for what he's currently doing. So he needs MA2 to be fully conformed.
I think we need to look at the Warehouse Creek Marina at the same time, because we can't do one without looking at the other to be fair and consistent. So can you give us the Warehouse Creek Marina information?
So, yeah.
Thank you.
So during your PAB review, the Warehouse Creek Marina submitted an application for MA2. They currently have a non-conforming use permit that allows them to have their operation there, and it is relatively in compliance. There are no current zoning enforcement cases on that property. And so they pretty much just said in their application that they're seeking MA2 to bring their zoning to match their existing uses. There will be an opportunity for public comment on this application, both written, starting tonight through, I think it's November 18th. Through December 2nd is when written testimony will be accepted on it. And then on November 20th, there is an opportunity for verbal testimony on this one. So I do not recommend that you guys provide a recommendation on Warehouse Creek at this time, just because you haven't heard from the public yet. But that's everything I know on Warehouse.
And where is it? Is it
Immediately south.
This property right here.
Right next door.
right next door?
And just to emphasize about this property specifically, this is what's before you. There is, opposition to it from the public, from what have been presented. There was one comment submitted, but it was, with a letter signed by 8 people in the community expressing opposition, wishing to maintain R1 for this site.
What is the property above it zoned,
R1 is wrong.
really? And they're conforming use?
Yeah, so from our understanding, yes. There's what we've looked at is this property, the project came south, because those have been applications that were submitted. So we've looked at those two. And those are the marinas that we know about.
That's, I'm not gonna get on your set, it's relatively compliant here. The between three words there.
All I know, like I say, I
Yeah.
just know that there's no zoning.
Right, I get it.
This is open.
Are they currently in agreement, sort of, with the zoning between the two?
The Winter Street is because they have that non-conforming use permit.
Okay,
The 25 Leland Road, also known as Edgewater 400,
Right.
that is circled. They do not currently have a non-conforming use permit.
What is the use of the building above it? To the north? Is that a home,
Our sense is private residence.
a private residence? Big private residence.
Are you talking about this parcel?
So the one you have circled,
Yes.
and then there's a big dock, and then there's a building to that big white dock. To the, yep, right there. Is that a home?
It has residential zoning, so I would assume.
Yes, it is.
Okay, that's there, okay.
Also of note, both of these, both the one that's circled and, the Warehouse Creek Marina, I think they both have residences on them.
Or they also have that.
I believe so.
I don't know how you knew on that about dealing with the warehouse, but.
What do you think? What do you?
I'm just saying, I don't know how you're making a decision on it without really dealing with Warehouse Creek Marina next to it.
That's what I'm saying.
So the board could just hold on this, vote on it after you, your book testimony and discuss the other.
I make a motion to hold this
Yeah.
until December 4th.
I second that.
Okay, motion's been made for EDW 0400, table the discussion until December 4th. When we can address both properties. All second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
And that is all we wanted to present to you tonight about Edgewater. So if there are others you'd like to talk about, have the opportunity.
I do have one question, Kim, if I may.
Hmm?
CZR9 EDW 0008. Not that was surprising. If you pull that up, that'd be great. And is there a plug under here by any chance?
There's one.
I thought I remember there were, but I don't remember.
There's one down here if you want to kind of toss me here.
Can you,
Yes, I can look.
Thank you. Did put people up then.
We can look Central Avenue.
Yeah, perfect.
All right, so while my computer doesn't cooperate, I'm about to pull it up. It's literally right to the side of us. So this is an owner application that came in at the first stage when owners could apply. It's an existing restaurant, I believe, that applied for C3 zoning.
Yeah, I was gonna check.
Yes, we are at 158 West Central Ave and 164 Central Ave West.
Okay, so if I may, I just wanted to highlight this one. I recognize that the owner requested C3 and OPZ and SAC were in support of that, but we did receive feedback from Arundel Rivers Federation that they disagree with that C3 recommendation to upzone all 3 parcels to C3 because portions of the site feature sensitive environmental features, including streams, intermittent stream buffers, and wetlands. These parcels sit in the headwaters of Beards Creek, one of the most polluted tributaries to the South River, a waterway designated by the US EPA as impaired due to excessive sediment and nutrient pollution. Beards Creek watershed currently has over 15% impervious cover, signifying that Beards Creek health is already impacted by the surrounding impervious surfaces. Beards Creek also has one of the highest total nitrogen loading from runoff in the entire South River watershed. Given the current degradation of Beards Creek and the sensitive features on site for 2 of the 3 parcels, Arundel Rivers disagrees with this and recommends a split zoning of C1 and C3. So I just wanted to bring that up to consider on our board here.
They have a
What's the 24?
separation line. Where did
So
they?
there's-
There are 3 lots, so I'm currently, we're hovering over the middle lot right now. So this lot to the east and also the lot to the west are part of the same property. I believe all 3 lots currently have a zoning of C1. And they applied for C3.
And what's on the other side?
These are big whitish color.
Are they about 1 acre lots, 3 acres total?
I think that's a fair assumption. Yes, so the middle one is about 1.06, and they all appear to be of the same size.
Is the business that's located on there on the middle, primarily on the middle lot?
I believe. Yes,
That's like 2 businesses, right?
458.
it's a restaurant operation, and I believe maybe catering business, but I don't-
Cad's Barbecue. So this is not far from the Safeway Shopping Center. If you're headed west on Central Avenue, it's on your right. And so,
So I took off the recommended zoning layer, so you can see a little bit better here, but this middle lot is primarily the most developed lot with 2 buildings, and some parking. This lot over here to the east also has some parking, but is undeveloped around the edges. And then the lot to the west is undeveloped primarily.
So they want C3.
That's correct.
they want C3 and
I would say the one that. Two lots to the right, C3 a lot. C1 is-
no, so the tributary, so if you see the South Cove tributary, so that says South Cove tributary is on the right. So it is my assumption that that parcel is the one that they would prefer to leave as C1 and be better protecting the tributary there.
So on the, for additional information on their application, when asked what would they like to do with the property, they stated to have the ability for a small banquet facility or catering or other retail establishments not allowed in C.
Can I ask for clarification from our zoning expert about it? What would be the change to go to things like lot coverage that would have implications for this runoff question relative to C3 and C1 zones?
On the spot. All right, on the spot. First parking and parking is 75% is C1. And C3 is 80%. So not much as far as.
It's only 5%.
Not much different. It's fine. Yeah.
We're not in the typical area of this property.
Any other questions, comments?
One thing I would like to emphasize too, any development that were to be proposed in the site, we have to go through the development review process, which should be reviewed by staff, which would have to adhere to any regulations set in the county code.
So we should just let it go through then. Just, they don't happen.
I know they disagree, but they're already using it. And you're only talking about 5% increase. C1 and C3.
We had
I
a
don't have a
discussion.
problem with
I'm
it.
good.
Does anyone have problems with it, or? Okay, we need a motion.
This is for,
No, this is for,
Water 8 is the number, it's the only number.
00.
Oh, if I may interrupt, did I understand, is there a new recommendation? I advisory board for the site?
We're good.
No.
Nope.
So
We're
we
gonna
don't have to
go
do
with-
anything.
agree with,
Okay.
Yeah.
with C3, the whole thing.
Thank you for the discussion
Were there
and the
any
clarifications.
points
Yeah,
that
make a
you'd like to
motion.
discuss?
for all of it.
So I motion to recommend approval of the developed policy area and developed policy area overlay changes for Edgewater as recommended by OPC with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. I also motion to recommend approval of the planned land use changes for Edgewater as recommended by the OPC with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. And I motion to recommend approval of the comprehensive zoning changes for Edgewater as recommended by the OPD, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed.
Motion's been made, second. Lawrence, second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, with that, we're gonna take a 5-minute potty break.
Bio break. My office is called bio break.
Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. Next is Galesville
Friendship first.
Friendship.
But it'll be easy because, there are no applications, no recommendations.
I don't have, where,
We have, it's not, it's very, very small.
We're not, but people are smaller. I don't know. Those people haven't gotten to this. Yeah, those of us who went first feel,
Peggy, why all of a sudden my Google Maps?
it's like now.
I can't get it to-
going or vindicated.
It's like, well,
I don't know if I can help you. I haven't used the actual Google Earth program all the time, but
I know, you guys have your county,
we get the lower version of it, actually.
like, it's fine over here, but where I'm looking, it won't be. fine.
Maybe, I know, so the house I grew up in still doesn't have Google Street View for my house.
Yeah.
I live in a very rural area.
Okay.
So maybe something similar that it's very, it's not as popular. I don't know.
Okay, my hotspot, I don't know. Or,
Is that-
my phones are Wi-Fi.
Yeah, we have, Arundel Public, I think is what it's called.
These are all locked. Guess that and.
That's it. No,
okay, it's 6:42. This is the Planning Advisory Board. Zoning 9 region discussions and deliberations, and we will resume. So the next community is Friendship.
thank you, Mr. Chair. So again, Region 9 has a very small portion of friendship, the community of friendship and its boundaries. There were 0 applications, 0 recommended staff or SAC changes. There were a few consistency changes, but again, there were, no comment, no testimony or comments received in this area. Wanted to bring this up.
Okay. Going.
Am I doing all three? You have them?
You can include all 3 at the same time. We're Friendship community.
Yeah, just. We don't have any applications. But we have.
We have-
We have all three. I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes for Friendship as recommended by the OPD, with the assumption that and land use changes for Friendship as recommended by the OPD with respect to any that were specifically discussed in the meeting. And I also motion to recommend approval of the comprehensive zoning changes for Friendship as recommended by the OPD, with the exception of any that were.
Second.
Second, motion's been made and second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries. Okay, moving forward on to Galesville.
So in Galesville, there are two areas we need to bring to you tonight. First of which is in the GSV 0005. It's 954 Main Street. It's commonly referred to as the firehouse, fire station in Galesville. The applicant came in requesting C4. The adopted zoning is currently R2. Staff and SAC both recommend R2. There were several comments received on this site, mostly in support of the staff recommendation. One of the comments included a long list of supporting signatures of the community members for the R2 recommendation. And the other comments mentioned support through the purpose of C4 zoning is not consistent with. Additionally, adopted plan land use for the site is commercial.
Say that again. please.
The plan 2040 plan land use of this site is commercial.
The property is owned or intended to be used by the Maryland or Maritime Heritage Foundation. So something along those lines. Got to do with maritime history. And they expressed that they are interested in using this site as historic boat restoration and showing it off, as well as using it as kind of community event space through this foundation that they're interested in working with. They pursued the Plan 2040 plan land use change in order to try to facilitate doing this. And now they're requesting C4 zoning. This is in Galesville. It's right on Main Street in Galesville, which you can get a view of on the screen. Main Street runs right here. And the majority of Main Street is zoned R2 zoning. There is some commercial businesses on Main Street that are zoned C1. There is no existing C4 zoning on Main Street or in Galesville, which is the request of the applicant.
And could they have their use in a different C zoning rather than C4? They seem to have.
Let me comment on that, because we did get a letter that was sent to us. It's in the attachments. And this is from David Plott. David Plott is a land use attorney. David states, and I'll read some of this, it's a historical property, is very clearly in nature. That the intended use is the Maryland Maritime Heritage Foundation, which is a 501c3. And that they want to do a museum there with vintage and classic boats, education and expertise. While some of the necessary, and I'll quote here, while some of the necessary boat storage will be indoors, outside storage is necessary for the efficient function of the MMH Foundation facility. Pursuant to Section 18-5102, both boat showroom and outside storage are a principal use and are only permitted in C4. A zoning change from R2 to C4 will allow them to establish its headquarters there. And then it goes on to talk a little bit more about their use. My comment is no way C4, and there is a picture of the facility there. It's a garage. It's a garage. Well, it was a firehouse before. You know how long it was a firehouse for? Many, many years.
Long time.
A long time. And I know a lot of the nature there is R2 zoning, but this has been used commercially for many, many years. And I would not have a problem going C1 with it.
So it's being used as that,
Right now, it's not used as a firehouse anymore. It was a volunteer firehouse and they sold it.
okay, but that's not commercial. It's never been commercial.
It has been commercial.
I don't,
Zoned or used,
Fine.
different things.
You,
Used?
you. not
Yes,
zoned.
zoned, no. 'Cause it's
Not
R
conforming.
one.
R
Or it's
two
R2.
firehouses can be established in any zoning district.
Firehouse, I mean,
And again,
okay, but that's not commercial.
you don't say firehouse is commercial use?
No, but it doesn't have to be zoned commercial to have a firehouse. So it has been used as a firehouse historically. But my question is, wouldn't there be some other avenues such as a variance or a non-conforming use and other ways that they could, I mean, I think generally we support heritage. I speak for myself. I support, the heritage and a museum, but not the M4. So are there other methods of getting to where they could be there?
I'd ask Joan.
With non-conforming use, they have to prove that they've been using it that way for the past 10 years.
Okay, that's not gonna work.
No, that's not gonna-
Well,
Yeah.
a variance, they can always ask for a use variance if their use is not under the use chart. We don't generally support those.
Yeah, with the R2 recommended zoning, they can't do the museum there.
I believe they can do a museum.
That's-
I can't do the
They can't
exterior
do-
storage.
Outside.
There is some exterior storage, I believe, through, or no, just kidding.
No, R2, well, if it's commercial, the outside storage accessory to permitted use is limited to 15% of the allowed lot. That's in the critical area, so there's gonna be critical area lot.
Are they in the critical area?
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Yes, they are.
Surrounded by critical area.
Yes, they are.
They have to.
But in R2, what could they do how could they manipulate R2?
With the museum.
Historic building, seems allowed.
Yes.
And it's in the historic Galesville overlay. And it's, as Gus said, it's been a firehouse for some time, so they could, if they don't already have it, they could apply to be historic firehouse.
They have to be located on a lot with a historic structure or activity to have a museum. And that is permitted. Part of the problem with their record for their proposal is that they want to work on codes. I don't believe that that'll be allowed in the residential. So. I feel like the community is pretty opposed to it.
Very
The
opposed.
community is
200.
opposed to it.
Are they already bought the property, leased the property, using the property?
The property has been bought for this purpose, but with the property owner plans to work with the Maryland Maritime Heritage Foundation, I don't believe it's started this use yet.
I think over 250 signatures to stay R2, plus the other staff and SAC recommendation to stay at R2, pretty convincing to me.
It sounds like there is some flexibility for what they can do.
Yeah. They might not get all the features they want, but they.
Everything except working on the boats.
Can't work with the-
Can't work on it.
So if we're not making any alterations to what staff and SAC recommended, we're good.
No other discussions? Okay, Eric.
Moving on, to GSV 0401. Excuse me. It's currently split zone R2, W2. The owner requested all of it to be W2. Staff recommended to maintain the split zone, while the SAC recommended to, grant the, owner's request, making it all W2. It's my understanding that the main purpose of this zone is to help provide access, I think, from Bidding Road to the existing established maritime or industrial maritime use that's been there for a very long time.
And I believe during verbal comments that the representative for the property noted that they recognize this is a fairly thin piece of property. They'd like to potentially use it for additional parking for staff. And that I believe during their verbal testimony, they mentioned they do not have plans to necessarily expand their operations.
And just for more information from a staff point of view, staff is recommending to maintain the split because it's consistent with Plan 2040 land use, as well as in theory, there could be a little bit of industrial, specifically outside storage, along that portion. But it would be very limited to what the owner could do if this entire piece were to be zoned.
And they have another way.
Yes, they can go back.
They don't have another way.
It is not.
Mulberry Green.
Oh, Mulberry Lane.
It does not go through, there's a garage in the Mulberry Lane. It blocks and then there's a 5-foot drop.
Do you know how wide that parcel is
I do not recall off the top of my head.
approximately? Because
I want to say it's about.
with W2 zoning, isn't the setback 40 feet with W2? So if it's only 40-foot setback for any type of structure. I think I recall.
Principal structures are 20 feet in the front, 15 on the side, 30 in the rear.
Okay, W2,
It's approximately 75 feet.
75 feet.
When the SAC discussed this, they discussed it, and originally they did not come to a consensus. When they continued their discussion, one of the primary points of discussion was that if the surrounding community felt strongly enough, they could put up fences on their own property.
I would like to point out that the 75 feet width along Bidding Road, it gradually increases to about 100 feet to where the split currently is. Approximately.
Are you also looking to do I call them boundary line adjustments, but what do you?
It'd be consistent.
Consistency. Thank you.
There is no consistency change recommended for this property. I believe the land use line was drawn approximately where the zone is established.
So the purple that's over in the green,
That's a different property.
Yeah,
There's
but that would be getting you consistent.
that's what I'm talking
Yes.
about. In the minutes, Mr. Harris, who is representing the Crandall property, did say at the end that he intends to use the additional space to park employee vehicle. And that. Hold on. 0.6 is the R2, right? And only 2.2 acres would be usable because the setbacks and wet.
I can confirm that 0.6 is the size of the R2. I did run the analysis on what it's actually used.
Where is my reference? Unnumbered Benning Road, GSV 0001.
That is a different property that's slightly to the west of this.
Where is that?
When it helps, like,
Yeah.
everything.
Benning
I
Road.
can look.
And
So we're in Galesville now. Give the computer a second to load. Benning Road is right here, as you can see. I'm hoping that it'll load the parcel lines and zoning and that we won't have to refresh. Perfect. Okay, so the property in question that we've been discussing is right here where the cursor is, south of the intersection of Woodfield Road and Benning, or sorry, to the east of the intersection of Woodfield Road and Benning. And the other property of similar circumstance is up here, further to the west on Benfield. A difference between these two properties is that the unnumbered Benfield one, which is change number GSV 0001, has an adopted plan land use of industrial for the entire site. So it would have been a consistency change had they not applied. I also believe that it doesn't directly abut, or no, it does. I think that.
So the difference between these two essentially, one of a few maybe differences is that one that Jesse just pointed out has an entire plan land use of industrial, while the one that we're talking about right now is split, and staff's recommendation matches the split plan.
Tell me again why staff recommends the split. Sorry.
Yeah, essentially, excuse me, essentially, if it were to be entirely zoned W2, there could be some uses along that portion that would abut the residential zone properties that aren't currently allowed today. But again, it would be limited because given the width of that parcel.
Did we get any, other than the property owner, did we get any community input?
Yes, there were, at the PAB draft stage, I believe there were 14 comments total on this property. I believe 7 came from the representative and the property owner, asking you to consider their request. And the other 7, I believe, came from community members that were opposed to the request.
Okay, that is the same difference.
And they can still use it as an access road currently on too, right?
Joe, can they,
I'm sorry,
they can still use the access through R2 to get to their industrial.
they're not supposed to. They're using it for an industrial use. They technically should have variance.
So that means it's non-conforming. Correct.
Yeah, well, if it's not conforming, it's not legally non-conforming.
So if it hasn't been in existence for 10 years, you can't claim non-conforming. So we have a lot of non-conforming. The 10 more, yeah, the 10.
I believe when the SEC discussed this application, they noted that at least this area has historic ties to the industry. So I've not seen the documents. I cannot speak to if this particular use has been there for 10 years consecutively, but I do know that the area has a history of industrial use.
Which helped resolve in the SEC recommendation for all W2 for the entire site.
And these would have had to start at a time when it's allowed. To be recognized.
I'm sorry, can you speak up? What was that?
To be recognized as a non-conforming use has to have been established when it was allowed. Not allowed, like by possibly a zoning change, and then there was.
For 10 years, okay.
Can we hold this?
You said it was R2 currently on the split. So does that mean if you wanted to, you could just chop that and sell it for R2?
Then he would be losing access to the.
Oh, so he does have access to it. That's why he's trying to get it. Gotcha, gotcha. Okay, I see that. Okay.
Sorry, can you go back to the?
Not much.
Do you want me to ask Joe?
This.
They've been using it for 100 years.
What do you mean? What does it say that?
Could be SAC. Justification. Yeah, that's that thing. I don't remember reading it. Go with it.
I believe that the PAB is reading and referencing the SAC justification for this property, is that
That
correct?
is correct.
Can you read that,
That
please?
is correct.
Yes. Yes, noted that the site has been used marine industrially for about a century. Rezoning the entire site to W two allows full use of the site and supports Plan 2040 Policy BE 4.2 to ensure the maritime industry remains a viable driver of economic growth and stability in peninsula policy areas.
Yeah, I'm. That was the map?
Yeah.
Any other comments? Any comments?
Yep.
Okay, you want to make a motion? Please. I don't think there's going to be consensus on this, but we're going to make a motion.
Okay. I motion CCRNGSB 0401 be recommended for
W2.
W2 along which the staff is recommending.
Nope, not the staff, what the SAC is recommending.
They say it's recommended. Oh, I thought W2 and W2. Sorry, I got too many things in the third here. Sorry. What the SAC is recommending and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Can I ask a clarifying question? So you're recommending that it be you're making a motion about W2 on the entire property?
The entire property.
So motion's been made, we have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, so motion's been made to do W2 on this entire parcel. All in favor? Aye. Nays? One nay? Okay, motion carries.
And that is the last one for Galesville.
Oh, since I have the sheet. Okay, I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and the development policy area overlay changes for Galesville as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed in the meeting. And approval of the planned land use changes for the Galesville area as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were discussed during this meeting. And approval of the comprehensive zoning changes for Galesville as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting.
Motion second? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
With that, we're on to Mayo.
Mayo,
And this is the largest, area with
Yeah.
application you want to bring up. Yeah. It's also the largest area that had the most applications. Process. So the first one to get right into it is going to be Mayo, MYO 0001. commonly referred to as Green Heights. It's two pieces circled. It's currently zoned R1 and a little bit of OS in that area. The owner requested R2 for the entirety. Staff is recommending maintaining the R1 zoning. And the SAC ultimately recommended RLD zone. However, the SAC discussed this application twice. The first time it was discussed, the SAC initially agreed with staff recommendation of maintaining R1. However, it was brought up at the next meeting. The SAC wanted to discuss potentially downzoning into open space, but ultimately settled on RLD, noting that there is some development potential currently, and OS would remove that entirely. They emphasize the fact that the SAC really wanted to limit any development costs.
I'm sorry, your last sentence?
Trying to reduce the residential, I think is what they're saying, the residential density in that area.
I sort of.
They're trying to reduce the residential density, correct, in that area.
Could you also read, maybe the Arundel Rivers?
I don't have it in front of me, but
Do you want me to read it?
sure.
All right, if I could, this is Glebe Heights, it's right adjacent to Glebe Heights, to Glebe Bay, where Arundel Rivers has done extensive restoration work. So they actually recommended that it go to OS, and I'll read their justification. There's ample evidence that the forest at Glebe Heights meets the regulatory definition of supporting habitat of potential habitat for forest interior dwelling species, FIDS. The Anne Arundel County Code 176303B stipulates that habitats or potential habitats for forest interior dwelling birds and other wildlife species that consist of a minimum of 75 acres of contiguous forest with 10 or more acres of contiguous forest located more than 300 feet from the nearest forest edge shall be left undisturbed. Additionally, the Anne Arundel County Codes open space zone and open space conservation overlay provide the exact mechanism necessary to protect sensitive habitats such as the forest at Glebe Heights. As stated in the code, the purpose of the OS-C overlay is to protect and preserve FIDS habitat, tidal and non-tidal wetlands, bogs, 100-year floodplains, streams, steep slopes, and all associated buffer areas created by this code. These purposes include, but are not limited to, protecting and preserving floodplains and wetlands associated with floodplains in their natural state, protecting and preserving streams and bogs in their natural state, protecting and preserving wildlife habitat associated with streams, wetlands, floodplains, and bogs, preventing soil erosion and sedimentation in tidal and non-tidal waters by protecting steep slopes, protecting and preserving scenic values, and protecting and preserving wildlife habitat. Any development within the OS-C overlay requires a variance to the code, the exact type of variance that could be necessary to disturb our last large intact forests like the forest at Glebe Heights. As such, Arundel Rivers recommends this parcel be rezoned as OS with the OS-C overlay to protect sensitive natural areas on site. That's longer than I thought it was going to be.
And this is a
That was my.
45 acre parcel.
It's huge.
It is within the county's greenway. Green infrastructure.
How much of it is right now R1?
The majority of the property is currently R1. The only other zoning on site is the OS, which is right here, adjacent to an existing park.
That was the
The application noted that the property owner is in the works for developing a site, or they're somewhere in the development process with an application to develop residential housing. And their request for R2, from what I understood, was essentially to allow flexibility for configuring the lots to try to preserve more environmental features spots.
Is there water and sewer?
thing, so.
No, it's wells and the Mayo tank system.
Our favorite. Okay, can we have a consensus of not R2? Can we take that off the table? Because not only are we looking, I mean, that's, everything that we don't wanna do, and then you're getting all your new 24, 72,
72, 24, yes.
72, 24. So I recommend we take R2 off the table to start our discussions.
It's not. It says here.
Agree?
Yeah, I
Agree?
mean, I
Agreed.
think, yeah, our
Okay,
thing's not.
so- Then we're down to, my question then becomes open space, because the definition of open space through this process has changed with our consistency and open space. So can you refresh our memories on definitions of open space, please?
I believe that the intent of Plan 2040 is to make the open space more meaningful so that it applies to floodplains or other properties that are conservation in perpetuity.
Or HOA properties that want to designate those as the community kind of. So
Qualifies.
Qualifies them, right?
It's a privately owned property.
it is privately owned, which is a factor that came into the staff's recommendation. If this would have been, state owned or something to that nature, we may have taken a different approach. Because, and again, this was an application as well. This was someone who applied to increase their zone rather than decrease.
So the SAC recommended RLD. Can you talk to us more about RLD and remind us about the,
So RLD is a zoning designation that stands for residential low density. The skinny of it is that it's generally about 1 unit per 5 acres. R1 is a zoning district that generally allows about 1 unit per acre. On screen, you can currently see this dark green shade over the Lockhaven Park, which is OS zoning. You can see this yellow up in the top, which is R2 zoning. And then the remainder of what you see on screen is R1 zoning.
Would RLD be consistent with Plan 2040 or
RLD would not be.
would not
consistent.
be?
The Plan 2040 plan land use for this site is low density residential, which is consistent with R1 or R2. RLD would be more consistent with a rural plan land use.
One of the comments I would make is that you down zone that parcel to R1. And you don't look at all the other parcels that are already R1, it's not fair.
no, it's already R1.
I mean,
So
RLD,
RLD.
and I think that's what C and Z,
RLD is also not consistent. with public
so
sewer.
they have R1. Take them to RLD.
It's not public sewer, it's the Mayo
The Mayo
tank,
tank.
Which is considered public sewer.
But they're not-
$40,000 a fee.
They're not in the, sewer, water sewer master plan?
They are for the Mayo step tanks, which are considered public sewer. They're in the Mayo sewer.
They are in the master plan.
Yes.
So I asked them all last, which one?
And then so right below it is that Lockhaven Park, correct?
That's correct.
That's what we talk about that.
I don't like it, but I do think R1 is the right, only because they already have it. They already have R1.
And how much of that is, sorry. How much of that is currently R1? Oh, I'm sorry, you got it. You said before, I can, sorry. Withdraw. Thank you.
So what?
I've been waiting to get.
Because they want to increase their zoning. We go to RLD, now you're penalizing it. Not.
How many acres was it again?
It's approximately 44.8 acres.
As an R1?
As their, with their current
R1
zoning.
right now, right now.
They were
They are currently in the like they've already submitted through the subdivision process, through that R1 zoning.
They are. That's all or one, would have never looked at it.
They have a sketch plan right now.
I thought this was.
There are some environmental constraints, such as a stream on the site, so there are, again, without seeing, all the information, like, as a sketch plan, there are some restrictions we're gonna have to.
We were trying to go with the RLD. I think we was just really going in. It's already R1, correct.
It's R1 now.
For the most part, yeah. Honoring that.
Then you were just, consistent changing some of the others.
That's correct. I'm going for.
In that little small area, yeah, that little park, that'd be consistency, right? So
I motion CZRNMYO.
Sorry.
001. Be recommended for RLD zoning and that the plan used match accordingly.
Okay, motion's been made, second. Okay, second going. Okay, that's for RLD zoning. All in favor?
Aye.
Nays?
nay,
Nay. 3 nays? 4 ayes and 3 nays, or you were yea or nay?
I was,
You were an aye.
I was an I.
Okay,
I was an I.
we have 4 yeas and 3 nays, motion carries. For RLD.
You wanna know who and who?
Right. Moving on, next one is NYO 0003. It's unnumbered parcel. It's what's currently circled on the site. It's currently zoned R1. Owners requested either R2 or R5. And the applicant's justification is they plan to develop a site, 55 plus living homes on their property. The comments during the review were all in support of the 55 plus living on this. The staff's recommendation is to maintain, staff and SAC both recommend to maintain the R1. And as you can see on site, R1 is what's in the air.
We're just south of the area we were just discussing. So this is Lockhaven Park right here. This is the southern end of the property you all just voted on. The majority of the area is R1. There is some R5 over in this corner. Keep it all down.
In order consensus. We don't need,
I wanna make sure.
you guys all on R1 on that,
Yeah.
or
Yes, we're good.
we're good with that? Okay.
Yep.
So next up is Mayo 0004. It's 7 West Wall Central Ave. Currently split zone R1 and C1. As you can tell, there's only a little bit of C1. It's mostly R1. The owner has requested W2. Staff recommended C1 for the site, but SAC did not provide a recommendation, could not come to a consensus. The SAC discussed the current zoning of the area, how traffic may affect access to the property. They also discussed the goals of supporting small businesses in the area. However, ultimately, the SAC was split, could not come with a recommendation. The owner has requested W2 to help expand the existing business.
What is the existing?
So it was, I looked up, it was something to do with,
We're looking it up. We'll be with you in a second.
so on the owner application. It's from the owner's application, it says, my business, TriTech Incorporated, employs 7 people in this location. We provide equipment, maintenance, and calibration services for life science laboratories in Maryland and the surrounding states. And it continues to go on. Like it's- But as you can see, there's no industrial in the area. There's C1 abutting into the south.
Is there any reason they can't do a C1? With the instead of industrial? Because I know what that is. So,
I would ask Joan, for this site, could they continue to operate with the C1 or do they need the W2?
What are they currently doing?
They state that they provide equipment, maintenance and calibration services for life science laboratories.
Notably, they mainly operate on the two parcels to the south, which are currently zoned C1. I can get you an address for those.
Is a laboratory there or they,
well, they test stuff.
are they a laboratory?
Yeah,
They do currently exist on the parcels to the south, so and they are, as far as I'm aware of, in compliance. With C1.
Any development plans for the W2?
They did not submit any,
They did not submit any.
or I don't that I'm aware of. They didn't mention.
I don't think the neighbor would like.
That makes it expanded. I don't think so. That's why I'm asking if they.
Well, this, just to also point out to everybody, this is 214 where the SHA and the county are currently developing the 116-foot wide road, highway expansion on 214 at this point. So the property, I don't know how the county has to acquire a lot of land. They're gonna be losing a lot of land, likely anyway. I'm just pointing that out for some perspective and context. This area is about to blow up.
I know we have laboratories as a use, but I don't see it in the C, commercial uses. I'm thinking it's gonna be an industrial. I don't know if they're working legally or not.
Well, this says they provide equipment, maintenance and calibration services for the labs.
Services.
yeah.
So they're more of a,
They go out and do stuff.
they're,
Service provider to the lab.
Or they bring back equipment and stuff like that.
contractors allowed for.
Yeah.
I make a motion, CZR9 MYO 00004 be recommended for C1 and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Motion been made and second. Okay, all in favor of changing, conform with staff recommendation C1, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Moving on, Mayo 006 A, B, and C. This is 2 slides. I'll show you what's currently zoned as well as what's being requested by the property or by the applicant. But before I do that, this is an area that's currently split zone between R2 and MA2. Staff in the SAC, or the owner has updated their request to have a split zone of R5 and MA2. There would be a reduction of MA2 on this site. Staff and the SAC both recommend granting the applicant's request. Previously, the applicant requested R22 zoning, but just to emphasize, R22 zoning is not being recommended or discussed any longer on this site. Is being discussed as R5 and MA2. Next slide. And here you can see on the left is the current zoning, and on the right is what was submitted by the applicant. It's kind of hard to tell maybe from a distance, but there is a reduction of MA2, which is in the middle, and then essentially on the sides, it's going to be R5. They are in the LDA, which
On the sides.
try to get it.
So, this portion of MA2 right here where the first place would, they're requesting R5 there, so we go residential.
Can't see the, what,
So,
okay.
so this would be R5. This would be R5, but this would be only MA2. So essentially, what would happen is
I got you, that growth, that, I see it, yeah, okay.
What were the comments?
I would just say that to point out the SAC and the staff agree on this, and that the property is currently significant blight with really dilapidated marina that's been ignored for decades. So having new development, and the owner or whoever, I don't know if it's the owner, but the developer of this has been very responsive to our concern. So.
There was a question about the comments received. This property did receive a number of comments. I would say overwhelmingly, the majority refer to high density housing or R22 zoning in their opposition to that, which is no longer requested by the applicant. Other than that, there are notes of concerns about traffic and public safety.
Again, currently the R zone MA2, and it is more MA2 now than what they're proposing. And MA2, as many people know, provide bars, restaurants, things that do provide a lot of traffic and noise as is today. So both proposed and current could in theory produce a lot of traffic or produce traffic if a developer would come in with what it is.
Jessica, what are the sizes of the properties on either side of the MA2?
They're not big, 2.1, 0.6.
No, I mean,
So
the proposal.
on the proposal to the west of the MA2 area is 1.35 acres of R5 zoning. And to the east of the MA2 zoning, they're proposing 2.44 acres of R5 zoning.
The LDA would allow for 4 units per acre.
So Jen just said that even though they're applying for R5, they'd be limited due to their location in the limited development
Two,
area.
how many, two, one,
Four per
four
acre.
per acre,
4 units per acre.
so 4, 12, maybe.
That's,
Side.
It's at maybe.
so
They're gonna have critical
in
areas.
R5, it's generally approximately 5 units per acre. Joan is saying actually they're in the LDA, it'd be more like 4 units per acre. Maybe this is all pending, whatever environmental constraints are on the site.
Got it.
I would also like to draw your attention to the SAC justification, just to piggyback off, Eric was explaining the MA2 portion of the site. And I think that that's really influential in the SAC's, recommendation. They've specifically noted that, the proposal from the applicant significantly reduces the MA2 on site, which reduces some of those uses that they didn't want to see, such as a restaurant or a bank.
So if we're with you, then we don't have to
We
do
don't have to do
anything.
Unless anybody wants to make a motion otherwise.
No, we're with you.
I would just like to point out though, that the concept that applicant has supplied has not been reviewed by the location of houses, streets, all that stuff.
Thank you.
The next application is Mayo 7. This is also another one. I have 2 slides showing the current proposed. Currently it's split zoned R2, MA2, and NB. The owner requested the same zonings, just shifted a little differently. And staff and the SAC both agreed with the applicant's request. As you can kind of see here, again, on the left is the current zoning, on the right is the proposed, what the applicant's asking for. One of the most notable things, starting off from the north, is there is an increase of the MA2 right there, where just as cursor is. So the top portion would remain R2. The just south right there, it's currently zoned MA2, but they're requesting, they would be willing to down zone the front portion along the road to R2. And then a little farther south, where the final part is C, is just clean up that MA2 to match where their door are to match the current.
There was a comment. I don't think it's noted here. In our minutes. From Mr. Vera. About. The owner overstating the petition. And that the small cottage marina has been redeveloped to a mansion with a swimming pool.
Yep.
And that he's already received the variance and had trees removed.
As far as the petition, the property owner did go around, or that what they submitted, they said that they went around their community and asked folks if they would be supportive of his request. The property owner did sign the petition because they do own several of the properties in the area.
You can see his signature on the petition. There are properties. So it is not.
It wasn't, it was misrepresented. Even, I mean, yes, he signed some of them and then he had a lot of names that didn't have signatures, so that's true.
Okay, I'm just reading off notes of what I wrote down during the public testimony. It's been there for 40 years and he wants to keep it,
Yeah,
right? 7, we're on 7A. right?
We are on 7. Are you reading
Okay.
from Mr. Vieira's testimony?
No, I'm reading just my little notes, what I wrote down for that, but I mean. It's Rhodes Marina too?
Road River Marina, that's the
Rhodes River Marina, okay.
Florence?
What would he do with the R2 in the front? Is he gonna put the house, stuff up there instead?
There's currently a house up on the front. I think what is for his proposal, I think there's a house currently there where it's zoning MA2. I think it was essentially a compromise
I've been there.
from the applicant to move to warrant MA2 and other.
Oh, okay.
we did give it.
And have them MA2.
Okay. Okay, Lynn?
What do you think? Dave? Hmm?
I love that response.
Hmm.
There were also, other public comments that you guys received via written testimony, just going back to a second. 8 comments supported the OPZ/SAC recommendation and other comments, no concerns about traffic, impacts to the environment. and use.
The Arundel Rivers, have anything to say?
I don't think so, hold on. No. Nope.
No, it's already said they be over there already. You gotta look down that side, fix it up there.
How are you guys?
I mean, I don't know.
Yep,
Okay.
We're okay with it?
yep.
Okay. Move forward.
Just double check and leave the vote. I think you do. Okay.
The last 2 in Mayo that we wanted to bring up to you is Mayo 112 and 113. This is Lykes Road.
We're at the end of the.
Yes, it's the end of the mountains. It's currently split zone R5 with a little bit of OS on the very bottom. Yeah, right there, that's first years. Initially, this was a consistency change for most of the area to actually R1. However, there was a lot of pushback from the community. They wanted to maintain their R5. And these requests, these recommendations, would have been fully reverted back to R5, except there's OS on there. And we need to bring this up for discussion.
So this orangey shade that's on the majority of the screen is R5 zoning. During Plan 2040, they had a planned land use of low density residential. So for consistency, we recommended R1, which is a zoning change. What they have. Several property owners reached out and said that they were opposed to this change. And so, like Eric explained, the majority of it is just kind of to walking back that consistency recommendation to maintain the existing R5. But you just need to clean up this area. And because it's not consistent with the planned land use, it's typically a comprehensive zoning change. Just to clean up that little bit of OS to match the remaining R5.
Just, you want to know the critical area?
It's RC. This area is in the RCA critical area, resource conservation area.
Which limits the development for one unit for 20
So, just so I get this right, all in the yellowish, tannish surrounding the circled parcels
Yeah.
is R1.
R5.
It's all R5. Yeah, but it's but you guys were doing, sorry, the staff was recommending we talk more professional, you guys. But you recommended originally R1 for consistency with the Plan 2040 because of the open space below, or explain that again?
So Plan 2040 designated a portion of this area, I want to say from about where the road curves on Lakes Road to the south. Everything that's residential, so that is that orangey shade, it recommended it be low density residential plant land use. Low density residential plant land use is consistent with an R1 or an R2 zoning. I didn't work here during Plan 2040, but I would venture to say that that recommendation of low density residential is consistent with the location in the peninsula policy area. With the other recommendations to limit growth in the peninsula policy area, and the environmental concerns for the area, especially that resource conservation area, critical area overlay. So staff recommended R1 to be consistent with that Plan 2040 plan land use. Property owners came back and they said, but we're currently zoned R5. Specifically, when I spoke to folks on the phone during the preliminary draft, folks mentioned wanting to be able to rebuild what they have given their R5 setbacks versus like an R1 setback. And given that we've heard from a number of folks for this west side of Lakes Road, we're recommending to primarily maintain the existing R5. And it would just be a change to this.
We clean up that little,
That's correct.
or OS, that's it.
And if this was received after the SAC, so this is another one that's gonna wait to be voted on?
So you can vote on this tonight. It's not a new application technically. It was out for public review during PAP.
But because of the resource conservation overlay, you can only build one house per 20 acres.
Yes.
And how many acres is that?
It's, the lots in here are vary. I want to say that most of the, let me see, let me verify.
Largest lot is a little over 5 acres. But
Yeah,
okay,
6.1 acres.
with the resource conservation area, there's no subdivision potential. These are legal lots. They can build a house on existing legal lot, but they can't subdivide it and create more lots because of that curved area.
Yep.
Thank
How
you for that.
would we just go ahead and, so this actually is just on the reason, fix that little bottom piece, right?
That's correct.
Go for it.
Oh,
got the sheet?
do I need to make a motion for that?
Yes, please.
Okay. I motion that CZR9 NYO -0112 and 0113 go with the staff's recommended zoning and that matches the plan land use match accordingly.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
And that's the last one for me.
Unless you'd like to discuss the other.
Anybody have any other Mayo locations?
No, but can I do this?
Oh,
Okay,
Sorry.
No, you got it.
My good.
You got it.
wrong page, wrong page.
Wrong document altogether. Can't get on the right.
Okay.
I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, as well as the planned land use changes, as well as the comprehensive zoning changes for the Mayo community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting.
Second.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Now we're very far south in the county at North Beach.
There is a total of about 7 left. I quickly counted, what we wanted to show you tonight. One in North Beach. The one in North Beach we wanted to bring up was, the adopted zoning. It's 609 Walnut Ave, NBC 0002. Adopted zoning is a R5. The owner, this is an owner application, we requested C1. Both the SAC and staff agree with the C1 recommendation. The reason we're bringing it up tonight is because we've heard, there were 5 comments submitted during the PAB review process, all expressing opposition to the expansion of commercial in the area.
They had concerns about safety and impacts on the neighboring community.
So this area along the water is a marina.
Uh-huh.
And then this is a commercial shopping center. There's a few shops in there, not too many. I think the building only expands to about here, and then it's parking mainly for the marina. And I believe the intent of the owner is to continue for it to be parking, I believe. But there were concerns about speeding. This is a very sharp turn here on Walnut Ave. Yeah,
That's Harrington Harbor.
that's correct.
Yeah,
Um,
I got married there.
There's a very sharp turn here, and so there's concerns about folks who aren't familiar with the area, speeding and kind of taking that
But
turn
that's-
too fast.
That's current, right?
Yeah, yes, those concerns.
So that additional parking has no impact on that sharp turn.
There's parking there now.
Right, that's what I'm saying. There's parking there now, so.
Or it's fine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we're in agreement, we're good. Okay, next one.
You need to make a motion on it.
Okay.
I
We're good.
don't want to put you on the spot.
I would,
but-
yeah, they do. I was just gonna ask again what the plan was with the.
So it's just this piece right here that's circled. It's currently zoned R5. They requested C1. If I'm remembering correctly, I believe it's just to expand the parking lot.
I categorically oppose that, but
I will say it's a dirt lot. It is not an actual asphalt.
I think it has a trailer, like not a trailer, I mean, like a small utility
That's fine.
trailer,
I'm
not. trailer.
Okay,
I'm good. Thank you.
We're good.
Yeah, we did not need a vote on this. Anybody? Yeah.
We're good.
That's all for
okay, so let's do North Beach.
Okay. I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, as well as the planned land use changes, as well as the comprehensive zoning changes for the North Beach community as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. Do I have a second?
Second.
Second, okay, motion's made, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
Next up is Shady
Shady
Side.
Side.
There are 5 we wanted to show to you tonight. The first one is Shady Side 0001. This is run along Snug Harbor Road. The adopted zoning is currently C1. The owner requested R10. Staff initially recommended C1 for the property, but which is why the SAC they did as well. But we've changed our recommendation since the SAC spoke to R5. And excuse me, sorry. The reason we as staff changed our recommendation was that given the environmental restrictions, the site is in the LDA critical area, limits the site to 4 units per acre. The recommendation of R5 would allow for additional housing options within Region 9, which is consistent with draft strategies in the plan as well as plans.
Of note, the existing C1 district does allow some housing to be developed, even though it's a commercial housing district, or sorry, commercial zoning district. My apologies.
And I misspoke, we actually did bring this back up to the SAC, the final meeting. The SAC saw a recommendation of R5 and actually voted to maintain their recommendation of C.
They have plans for their R five, or they just.
There's no plans for this, but it is, they wanted housing. And R5 would help get us up. But again, it is limited to 4 units per acre, not 5.
Is
And it's
there,
only
plan-
one,
is there planned water sewer there?
I don't,
We're gonna follow up on the water sewer. Ms. Rosberg is correct that it's only 1.7 acres. And as you guys are aware, if there were any environmental features on site, et cetera.
Which zone has the least impervious surface permitted?
Joe, does C1 or does R5 permit, which has,
There's a critical area, they're governed by a critical area lot coverage.
regardless of the zoning district? Did you hear that, Melanie?
Yes, thank you.
What was the answer to that question?
So, regardless of the zoning district, they're governed by the critical area for their impervious.
They're in
surface.
LDA,
Eric or Mike, feel free to step up if I misrepresent, but I believe when the SAC was, deliberating on this for the second time, when we brought up the R5, they noted, I think, the fact that it could be, you could do housing in C1, anyways, and that there is existing C1 in the neighborhood. As you can see on the screen, there's C1, which is this pinkish shade on the adopted zoning map. There's R1, which is the tan shade, W2, which is the purple, and MC, which is the indigo. It does have public sewer.
Yeah, groundwater.
so we have to vote because you're,
Yeah, there's a split.
because it's a split.
Yeah.
So the question is C1 or R5?
They are
Or-
fine.
Something.
Do I hear a motion?
Ma'am, what you say?
I don't know what you need to read, but there you go. There you go.
Hey, don't you hand it to me, you did not. I motion CZ R9 SDS 0001 be recommended for R5 zoning and that the planned land use match accordingly.
Okay, motion been made, a second,
Second.
Lauren, second. Okay, motion and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries for R5.
so moving along, just to the north, this is Shady Side 0400, 4804 Outlaw Road, also commonly referred to as Discovery Village. The currently adopted zoning is W1 R1 OS. There's a little bit of splits, not a whole lot, it's mostly W1.
Mostly W1, there's a little bit of OS in this corner, and then a tiny amount of R1 just below it.
The
gosh, tiny.
The owner requested MC, maritime commercial zone, staff recommended B. And the SAC could not reach a consensus on the site. The staff's recommendation, so the SAC could not provide a recommendation on the site. The committee was split between maritime zoning or maintain the current industrial use or industrial zoning. Staff will use maritime zoning more appropriate and could help with promoting and sustaining commercial fishing trades, which again is part of the strategy and recommendations of this region I plan, as management work. There were some public testimony on the site, 6 comments received, 5 of which oppose rezone.
To start with, I think we should walk through the colors on the map. So this tannish shade is R1. There's a little bit of OS that's on the adopted zoning map. I think that's not on the, it would, your consistency changes, I think it's no longer there. The indigo shade is MC. This is some C1. We are very close to where we were just discussing down here at this picture. This purple shade is W2, that purple shade is W1, and this blue is an MB. Any clarification on the zoning map that we're looking at?
Yeah.
It is confusing.
So the MB recommendation would be butting up primarily next to existing MB.
It is fairly close to existing.
What is existing? I'm not familiar with Discovery Village, so what is existing on there and would they be able to continue? Obviously, I don't think it's recommended otherwise as MB.
Great question. So Discovery Village was some kind of industrial lab type site at one point in time. Currently, the site is used by the Department of Recreation and Parks, which has a lease to use a boat ramp on the site, which is maritime. I don't believe there's anything else currently being done on the site or being used on the site. But that's why it's got that industrial because of that former lab space. The applicant notes that it is on a peninsula, it's got some water around it, and so that's why they're requesting maritime, or MC specifically. In SAC discussions and from the community, we've heard about traffic concerns in the area, that we are at the end of the peninsula. That it's one lane in each direction, and so it's not exactly the safest sometimes to be driving next to trailers that are hauling boats. I think that
The applicant, did state they have no intention on changing, the leasing with the county. So
Do we know how long-term the lease is?
I'm not sure. I could try to find that.
So what is the difference in MC and MB?
Joan, can you help us?
MC. Okay.
So MC versus MB.
I think the biggest thing, right, MC allows the, boat stacking outdoor, like a boatel.
Yes. I'm looking to see if there's a difference, yes, so storage of watercraft in excess of 150 feet is allowed in MC and not in MB. There are some uses that are permitted in MC that are additional in MB, like storage of multi-level watercraft rack. And that's it. Everything else, well,
MC.
I'm sorry, MC allows storage of watercraft covered in wet press, right, and
all that?
MB is
Conditional. Have to get there.
for the most part, very much a lot of it.
Stratton,
Marine salvage and towing operations are permitted in MC.
And MB, I want to make sure, because this is going back to the marina testing, MB, a restaurant's allowed, but it's a conditional use, so it would need a variance, is that correct?
Restaurants are permitted in MB and MC. And then
Okay.
We
Yeah,
have to make.
well, we have to do it because they, yeah,
Yeah.
Because the SAC doesn't have one.
Right. So.
okay, make a motion.
Could not find any information.
All right, I'm making a motion.
We have a motion coming.
I move that CZ R9 SDS -0400 at 4801 Atwell Road, that we follow the staff recommendation of MB, be recommended for zoning, and that the planned land use map match accordingly.
Second.
Okay, motion's been made in second, all in favor? Aye. Nays? Motion carries.
we're still in Shady Side. We're still in the same area too.
We build it to the southwest. This is Shady Side 100, 1430 Snug Harbor Road. The adopted zoning is a currently split zoned R1 and W2. It's kind of that Harry Potter lightning bolt. So one thing, unofficial testimony, today at 4 o'clock, the owner of the site called me and we discussed, he mentioned for the first time to me that they want to maintain the split zone. They maintain the industrial more importantly. He bought the site, he claims he bought the site to put a 4,000 square foot building on the industrial zone portion of the site. And.
I'm looking going,
But, but before that conversation, staff's recommendation is to make the whole property R1. The SAC did not reach it.
The site is approximately 3.5 acres in total. The R1 zone portion of the site is approximately, oh, sorry, I misspoke. The W2 zone portion of the site is approximately 1.7 acres.
someone wants to keep it the same?
That's what he told me this afternoon. Yeah, he did mention, he focused heavily on the, industrial aspect, but he mentioned, conservation for the urban, could be an idea for him.
Okay, but I have a question. He didn't request any zoning, so how did this even how did you even
Yeah, so
target this?
in doing the consistency analysis, I noticed that it was a split zoning. I also noticed that, the lines are kind of wonky, if you will.
Yeah.
You can see on the neighboring one as well, it is a straight line, but it doesn't really follow the zoning there, or sorry, the parcel lines. And so in looking at it, currently I did not see any industrial uses on the site. And so
And it's all wooded too.
I believe so. And so knowing that a portion of the zoning is R1, it's not, there is some neighboring R1, it's currently undeveloped, it's not used industrially. We did send them a letter letting them just, saying, hey, this is our recommendation. They didn't have time to get back to us. They chose today at 4 o'clock. But yeah,
There you go.
But what about the parcel right next door?
that one I believe is a consistency change to entirely R1, the part next one.
And they were notified as well and have not provided any opposition.
So with this split zoning, is it possible to continue that line across, not leave it where it is now, but push the split up to
Oh, right.
align?
Yeah, right there.
Correct.
You could recommend that.
And make that all
So
Make
the
that,
top
make
portion would be W2
W2
and then
in the
that
bottom R1,
R1.
but then the zoning.
Is that what you did with the other one?
Yeah, the other one is
Yes.
gonna change to all R1.
One concern that's very similar to what we talked about in Galesville earlier. You're not allowed to access industrial through residential zone.
Well, he's got that problem now.
Right. He currently has that problem.
I believe they could apply for variance potentially.
Yeah, you can apply for variance. Use that or.
And staff is making a consistency recommendation for the neighboring property
That's correct.
to make that all R1. So, okay, you wanna make the motion?
I wanna make the line go down there.
Yeah.
And then have them apply for a variance.
Okay, make a motion. Make a motion. Somebody.
Okay. Ooh, might be interesting. I motion CZRNSDS 0100 be recommended
What's that?
for split zoning with our W2 being straight across with the consistent neighboring W2 and the remaining of the property stay R1. And plan use, land use not according.
Okay,
Second.
okay, motion's been made and second. All in favor? Aye.
I
Nays? Motion carries.
All right, we are in Mount Harbor community, I believe, in Shady Side. This one, as you can see, the existing zoning is R5, that's that tan shade, and OS, that's that green shade. With consistency changes, it was recommended to be slightly different. I think there was a maritime zoning recommendation at one point of MA1, which is for a community marina, because this is a community marina essentially. There's some bulkheads and piers around this inlet. The community reached out to us and said, hey, we're a little apprehensive about zoning changes. And what can we do? And so community piers are not permitted in the OS zoning district. And so what they were most agreeable to was a line of R5, as you can see in this proposed, to make their community marina facilities be conforming with their zoning district. And that's why it's kind of.
Yeah, do the community marina or community pier?
They are community piers, I believe.
The last sentence says the current OS zoning district will be maintained on the remainder of the property, the remainder of the community property. So where,
It's really just around where the existing piers are to bring them into conformance.
Just a little piece.
With the red area.
oh, thank you. So if we agree, we just leave it.
I think this one didn't have
This one doesn't have an
Oh, yeah.
SAC, so
Okay.
we need a motion.
I move that CZ R9 SDS 0102B on 1750 Lake Avenue be recommended for R5 zoning, and that the planned land use match accordingly.
For clarification, I would like to ask your intent was to be the proposed zoning as shown.
R5, proposed zoning as shown, staff recommended R5,
Thank you.
located specifically where it's shown.
Thank you.
Okay,
Second.
second,
Second
okay,
for Edward.
motion's been made, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries.
Okay, I promise we're getting out Shady Side soon, guys. Right now we're in Dennis Point community. This is a community that has large chunks of open space, as you can potentially see. You can see the parcel lines and then these larger areas. They requested that their open space area remain zoned R2 with the exception of some of the area that they wanted to remain OS. So this just kind of reflects that conversation with them. It was added after the SA's discussion, which is why we'd like you to weigh in. I'm open to any questions or comments. Yeah,
Even though you changed the open space, they really can't build because of the previous regulations, et cetera.
that is correct. This one does have restrictions in the plat that they cannot develop.
I just think it's weird. Random open space.
That one was because the
Go ahead.
property
You know,
owner,
we don't-
I believe,
No,
the
that's
property
not-
owners back up to that
We-
area
we go
were
along
upset
with
by
the-
the.
Oh,
Staff
okay.
recommendation as shown on the proposed zoning map.
Right, so it sounds like our motion, for ZZR9 SDS 0105B Dennis Point Open Space. Be recommended for. I'm not recommended for
R2.
R2
And OS.
and OS. And that the planned land use matches accordingly,
As shown on
as shown on
the
the
proposed.
proposed, map.
Thank you.
I don't know which one it is. though.
Second.
Motion's been made in second, all in favor? Aye, any nays? Motion carries.
That wraps up.
Shall I do it?
Yep.
I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes, as well as the planned land use changes, as well as the comprehensive zoning changes for the Shady Side community as recommended by OPZ, with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during the meeting. Do I have a second?
Motion's been made in second, all in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Okay, we're done with, Shady Side, moving on to Tracys Landing.
Learning, and then West River after that, and then we're finished with these. There's only 5 left, I think. First one is going to be, Tracys Landing 0100. It's Harrington Harbor Board. This is, currently split zone, a few different zoning categories, OS, R1, NB, and MC. This piece, the 100, is essentially, making the OS split MC and NB match, the existing.
They had an updated plat after Plan 2040, so their parcel, or sorry, an updated parcel line. So their parcel line moved a little bit. So it wasn't 100% aligned with the plan land use recommendation of Plan 2040. And so because I had to update the plan land use to better match the parcel boundaries, it's on the comprehensive zoning change table. But like Eric explained, this one in the middle would have been, it had the correct plan land use, it would have been a consistency change. It's some of the smaller ones around the edges that really were more comprehensive because of the updated parcel boundary. And it's just, it's currently a marina. It's mainly MC and MB, and it's just kind of aligning with those boundaries.
So we agree with you.
So, we don't have to vote on that because you're,
I
There
don't
was
think
no
that-
SAC.
Yeah, I would appreciate.
no
it.
SAC.
If we want, there is a second piece to this, we can kind of combine it all into one potentially. This is technically a different one, but again, same exact area. This is increasing,
OS.
similar thing with, oh,
They're on, would you believe me if I told you the parcel line adjustment to the one impacted the parcel line adjustment to the other? And that's the way it goes.
Mhm. Okay.
I do.
Mhm.
Now, I have to read them too. CZ R9 TLD 0101 AB and 0100 at Harrington Harbor North be recommended for split MC and MB zoning and that the planned land use match accordingly. Do I have a second?
Second.
I-
Oh, sorry.
Harrington Harbor North is recommended for MC and MB, the other one is recommended for OS.
OS, thank you. Tracy's Creek Homeowners Association, clarification. Can I still do them at the same time?
I think your intent was for Harrington Harbor to be MC and MB and the homeowners association one to be OS.
OS, correct. That is correct. As shown on the map.
And I
Okay,
second that.
and we have a second. Okay, we have a motion and a second. So on the motion, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
and then the final one for Tracys Landing we wanted to show is, here, if you want to hit this one more time. I wanted to show essentially what's being recommended to change. It's an increase of open space, just north and south of the current.
Love it.
It was a staff recommendation. Reviewing
Always.
the environment. Can I hear a motion?
What is that number? Is that 10102?
That's correct.
Got it.
You got it.
You got it, Lawrence? Go ahead.
Yeah, I just didn't know the number. I was.
0102.
All right, can I motion for CZ R9 TLD 0102, the Highview Community Association for the staff's recommendation for split zoning of MA1 and open space.
Second.
And the plan land.
Second, all righty. All right, motion been made and second, all in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
But
That's it for Tracys Landing.
Right.
Oh, we gotta read that.
Yeah, we gotta read it. You wanna do it?
Man, I'm gonna mess this all up. Well, let's go. It says here, I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes for Trace.
yeah.
Do them all. Let me do them all. The policy area overlay, plan land use changes, comprehensive zoning changes for Tracys Landing as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning with the exception of any that were specifically discussed during this meeting.
Second.
Motion's been made and second. All in favor? Any nays? Motion carries.
West River, the final community, there are two we wanted to show to you tonight. Based on everything we've been talking about. The first one is West River 0001. It's both parcels that are circled in the green, currently zoned RLD with a little bit of open space. The owner came in requesting RA. Staff recommended maintain it all as RLD. And the SAC did not provide a recommendation. The group is generally split between RLD or RA. A big reason as to why staff maintain the RLD recommendation is generally just the location of the parcels compared to the surrounding community. If other neighboring properties were to request the RA, it may have been a different conversation, but given that it's just these two, anyway, staff is recommending RLD for the entirety of those parcels.
RA is the,
Sorry, yes, RA. No, sorry, RLD, staff is recommending RLD, but the owner requested RA.
okay.
For inquiring minds, RA stands for rural agricultural. It generally permits about one dwelling unit per 20 acres. RLD stands for residential low density and generally permits 1 unit per 5 acres.
This area is also the critical area, RCA, which also provides a 1 per 20 acre overlay for the whole thing. So the change to RA wouldn't significantly change the potential for subdivision.
As Eric noted, the here Muddy Creek Road here seems to serve as a boundary between the RA areas and the RLD. And this property owner did talk to their neighbors a little bit and was open that the neighbors were not interested in changing their zoning district.
It is 30 acres. And what is the middle one? 49, yeah.
4941, I believe that it's referring to this one, is currently zoned RLD with some OS. It appears that there's some sort of stream that runs down to the water.
I'm sorry, repeat that again,
RLD and OS.
So you're gonna proposing, well, you're not, okay, sorry.
There are consistency changes in this area that it would be all of the parcels that are currently RLD and OS would most likely go to RLD in their entirety.
One of the questions I have is why get rid of the open space if there's a stream there?
Again, and that goes back to any type of development that were to occur or be proposed to go through the development review process. That the code would protect environmental sensitive features, while open space is designed to be entire parcel that are floodplains or parks of those spaces or something like that.
I actually know this parcel. I just realized I know this more than I thought I knew this. And did the owner talk any more detail about why they were applying for RA?
I got a little bit of commentary to that. The owner is an advocate for equitable preservation. That the family of the owner, the owner is a teacher at Southern High School in the ag program. She was interested in applying for this just kind of as a way to say, how do we further help sustain land use to support agriculture in South County? As the other side of Muddy Creek is RA, so she was thinking, should this whole area be RA? She was also interested in other provisions that can help support agriculture. So we also gave her information about things like the state's for tax assessment for agricultural land, and talked to her about easement programs and other incentives to help maintain land and agricultural use more financially viable. To make sure that she knew that zoning wasn't the only tool out there to help sustain agriculture from a land use perspective. So that was the intent, was kind of to help support agriculture in this area. And as Jesse noted, there are other neighbors who are also in agricultural use were not supportive of changing from RLD to RA.
To RA. I believe also just to some little more commentary. I believe that maybe not that person, but her mother was trying to do a mushroom farming on this property, and she was having trouble getting approval to do that because it's wooded, which is good for mushroom farming. But it didn't meet the state's Department of Agriculture kind of definitions and boxes for getting a lot of the insect, I believe, I could be quite mistaken. So I just think it's an unfortunate situation where it doesn't check the box for agriculture is viewed as cleared farmed land. It was wooded mushroom logs that they were trying, that they actually farmed. So
The concern I have is that you have one parcel that would be RA, then you have another that would be RLD, and then you have another that would be RLD with that one in the middle that's not gonna change. That's that would. I think it should all three of them should be the same. What is 4975? And what is 4927?
Okay, so there, it's kind of hard to see because there's 3 shades of green, so bear with me. This darkest shade is OS. It
Right.
kind of runs along the back into the water. This bright shade is RA. And then everything else over here that's not the W2 purple is RLD.
I'll also highlight that, well, to the, and I know we've heard it a few times about OS and the code. Environmental regulations will save the trees. And the steep slopes, but Arundel Rivers Federation does have a concern and prefers that this stay split zoned to preserve the OS. I just want to remind us that we got some feedback directly from them about that, given the site's sensitive environmental features.
What are we doing?
Yes, what are we doing? I just put it all out there. You guys figure out which one.
Do we need to put a motion in for this minute?
So this is,
Okay.
are we in agreement with P and Z on RLD?
Staff recommendation there.
I'm gonna stay with the split RLD and OS.
I would like to see this.
What do you
but
think?
It's not gonna have everyone do it.
You guys can keep it the way it is. Somewhere else here, you just leave it alone, keep it the way it is. Get rid of the open space. This is the-
Because the one that doesn't go on one.
Yeah.
Even do it.
We have a motion.
Oh, sorry, okay, I motion CZ R9 WRV 0001 goes with the staff recommendation of RLD and the planned land use match according.
Okay, both motions been made. A second?
Second.
Okay, we have a second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
2, 3, 4. Ayes. Nays?
Nay.
1, 2, 3 nays. Motion carries.
Finally, West River 0003, which is 846 Shady Road. It's currently zoned R2. The owners request MA2 zoning. Staff and SAC both recommend MA2. The site does have a non-conforming use, which allows MC type uses.
Say the last part again.
The site has a non-conforming use certificate that allows for MC type uses.
MC type, thank you.
But again, the applicant is requesting MA2.
Is that a pier going out to the water?
Yes, so, I'm gonna start with the zonings on screen. So this bright yellow is R2. This dark green is OS, and this tannish shade is R1. So it's currently zoned R2, but it does have a non-conforming use permit for maritime uses, and it is used as a marina. The non-conforming use permit does say that it is a MC type use, which is the highest maritime classification that we have. The owner applied for MA2 zoning, which is the lowest commercial maritime zoning that we have. The lowest commercial maritime zoning?
MAB.
Oh, MA1B. I forgot that one.
We got a new one.
I apologize. The site is approximately 3 acres. I don't know if I said that one already. It also potentially has historic not uses, but archaeological on site. So it would be subject to an archaeological study for any other further development occurs.
To the critical area. LPA.
I mean, if. I don't have any.
You know, with
I think we're all in agreement with that.
Mm,
Yeah, we don't need to vote on that.
And then if there's no vote needed for this one, then that is all for West Rankin.
Well, I do have one thing. It's just, and I don't know why I wrote this down, but, WRV 0101. It's 188 acres.
Yes.
Where are you?
Right here, last page.
Yeah.
The address is 4956 Muddy Creek Road. Last, on our last page, yeah. Page 14 of our.
14 or 14. Those 19.3 acres.
Yep, so the property is fairly large, as Mr. Briggs pointed out. The change would only be to 19.3 acres. So right now on screen, you can see this bright blue line that outlines the entire property. The recommendation is only to the northern OS part. The planned land use was split originally between rural and
OS maybe?
rural and conservation. The property does have an agricultural easement and is part of the state's rural legacy program. And I couldn't find a record of why like if there was extinguished development rights for the conservation part at the northern end, which is why we've recommended rural on the entire property, rural plan land use on the entire property, and RA zoning on the entire property. It would only be a change to the 19.3 acres.
Okay, I just, because it's such a large piece, I just wanted to look at that.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, that's a good point. What
Did
page
you
is that on the very last
Page
page?
14.
Can you remind us again, because I know we've had a little break since we've done this, and so I know one of the goals is to increase open space. But with these consistency changes and some of these other things, we're decreasing it. So can you explain the thinking behind that?
I mean, in actuality, with all the recommendations that were presented to this entire thing, there's actually a large increase of open space. For original. I can get you those numbers.
Make a motion.
I think your concern is valid, and I mean, there are so many changes like this that, you know, didn't come to light. And we can only do so much, but I do believe that this is significant enough one that I would support it saying split zone.
In other words, keep the open space.
I think it's really hard to do that on this one. We've gone through all those other ones. Haven't, I mean, it's a no.
With all of the recommendations before you, there is an increase of over 1,145.34 acres of open space, increase for each.
Region 9 was the one that had the most increase in OS, or the only increase, I think, in OS so far in some of the presentations
have to
and some of
check.
the hearings. That's what I, public hearings that we,
What is also your
And then, yeah,
point for the OLS? Does he point it out with the rural?
Yeah.
Sorry, sir.
No, it's already.
Then you're gonna take away rural
land. That's what we're-
Yeah.
increase your rural ag number.
that's true. That's fair.
Okay,
I mean,
we're fine. I think we're all good.
So then if there's no other from West River, that's all staff had to show.
We're ready. Go on.
I motion to recommend approval of the development policy area and development policy area overlay changes for West River community as recommended by OPC with the exception of any that was specifically discussed during the meeting. Also motion to recommend approval of the planned land use changes for West River as recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning with the exception of any that was specifically discussed during the meeting. And I motion to recommend approval of the comprehensive zoning changes for West River as recommended by OPD with the exception of any that was specifically discussed during the meeting. Second.
Okay, motion has been made and seconded for West River. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries.
So just before we officially wrap up, there's a few more slides showing the new requests received during the planning advisory board review. And I'll just, again, there will be a special hearing and deliberation just for these. I'll mention those dates again at the end. The first one is in Deale. It's only one in Deale. It's currently split zone with residential, commercial, and maritime. Essentially, from out to the owner, he has a parking lot, serves his marina, his restaurant. He just wants to make sure that is understood. And he wants to, he actually wants to maintain the residential and commercial. And again, all this information will be provided online, is provided online, and as well as I think since the PAB.
We need to do Region 9 as a whole.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can do that one in just a second.
And then, yeah, and the next one is the Leland Road.
Ross Creek Marina, we already kind of touched on this one.
Yeah.
We've got a few in Edgewater along Maryland too. There's one here at 3133 and 3147 Solomon's Island Road, and one down here at 3167. As you can see all along Maryland too, it's that red shade, which is commercial. There is some of that magenta shade, which is C4. In these two instances that are circled in green, the property owner requested a change to C4 zoning from their. There's also another one, and we're still in Edgewater here, from a request from R10 zoning to C4 zoning. Still in Edgewater, we're in a different area now. We're at the end of Maryland 2, or well, not the end, but we're at Maryland 2 intersects with 214. There is an insurance agency with a non-conforming use permit that requested C1 zoning. And then still in Edgewater, there is, this one actually was part of verbal testimony to you guys at Southern High School. It's a number of lots. I want to say it's about 14 lots that are currently zoned C3, where the owner is requesting C4 zoning to redevelop with C4 uses.
And then since we love open space so much, somebody came in and wanted to apply to actually downzone certain areas to open space.
Yes. So it's written that somebody at the Crownsville Conservancy, so they were donating this property. They want to change them from the residential to the open space.
So Chair, I believe we are at your discretion. If you're ready, we can open the record for testimony on those new ones, so we can get it. As it shows on the screen, we are going to accept written testimony until December 2nd. And we'll have a public hearing so you can hear from folks on these handful of new applications that came in during your last public testimony period. That public hearing will be on November 20th. For clarification, we are not accepting any new zoning applications. We are not accepting comments on anything that was discussed. This is just an opportunity to comment on those new zoning apps that came in at the last public hearing. Would you like to open the record?
Yes, we can open it up for public testimony.
And then before we close, you did point out that we need to vote on the plan.
Go on the plan, and before we do that, is there any scheduling that you want to go over?
Yes. Currently I have you guys holding December 4th, for our deliberations on the new zoning applications.
Ed won't be here, it's his birthday.
Oh,
I just wanted to make that announcement for him.
I will not be, I will be actually,
Somewhere else.
we jokingly say no cell service and all that. I will literally be somewhere where there's no cell service.
When we were looking at the timeline and thought it best, make it so that we can get through all of these conversations, get you guys home by a semi-decent hour. And make sure that we hear from people, make sure that we have time to deliberate. In doing so, we moved our public hearing for Region 9 to November 20th to take some of that public hearing off your plate for the December 4th meeting. For the December 4th meeting will still be public hearing on Regions 1 and 3, their new applications, which is, I think, roughly maybe 14 applications. And then it will be deliberations on those new applications from Regions 9, 1, and 3. So it's a good amount to get through. Like I said, I don't want to keep you guys here until midnight. That's not my goal for you guys. And so I would wanted to see your availability on December 11th, if we could hold that just in case December 4th is running late and we wanted to call it and say, go home, get a good night's rest, and come back on December 11th.
December 11th? Oh, would not be here.
I'm good on the 11th.
I'm around, I'm here.
I'm here. I'm good.
Okay.
You need to be here or Zoom.
You can be on Zoom.
Okay.
Could you be on Zoom on the 4th?
Yeah.
I won't have it, but I'm just asking, you never know. I'm in the,
So I'm hearing most folks can make it in person or on Zoom. Okay, thank you so much. I really appreciate all your hard work. I'll send you an email and a calendar invite shortly.
Okay, so Melanie's want to make a motion.
I move to recommend approval of Region 9 plan recommended by the Office of Planning and Zoning with the exception of any previously noted comments. Do I have a second?
second.
Okay, motion's been made for Region 9. All in favor? Aye. Any nays? Motion carries. So with that,
There you go. Yeah, there you go.
He was loud
with
enough.
that one, I want to thank OPZ staff and I will tell you, you make it so easy for this board. You really do, because you have such a wealth of knowledge and information. So we really want to thank you for that. This really helps, especially the pictures. Picture says 1,000 words.
We like pictures.
Yeah. So thank you. And board members, thank you for your time. I know we've got a busy month here, a busy month of Wednesdays, but we'll get through it. And with that, we need a motion to adjourn.
A motion to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Second? All in favor?
Aye.
Any nays? Motion carries, we are adjourned.